Good evening and welcome to another episode of the AFC East Bros Podcast. Kyle and Gary here, talking all things in the AFC East. And finally, we have a week where there is a lot of news in the AFC East, and we're not just trying to make up topics. But this week we're going to continue with our theme of ranking certain core groups in the AFC East, seeing which teams have the best unit, second best, third best, fourth best, etc. We're going to continue with safeties this week. But before we do that, we'll have Max Himmelrich of the Deep End Miami to come on and discuss his recent article about Adam Gase's red zone offense. And I think that this is going to be an important thing because, there's been so much talk about how Adam Gase is this, hot head coaching candidate. He was the number one guy. He's got really good offensive scheme, and everyone always talks about how he's an offensive genius, but very seldom when people say that do they follow it up and say how exactly he's very innovative and how he's a genius offensively. So it's going to be nice to have Max come on and discuss some specifics. We're also going to talk about Tom Brady and his suspension, the news that came down with that. We're going to be talking about Muhammad Wilkerson and his shocking deal that surprised everyone, even people in the Jets organization and in Muhammad Wilkerson's camp. We're going to be talking about the Jonathan Williams suspension, and we will also be talking about the Arian Foster signing with the Miami Dolphins. So, Gary, before Max joins us, what's on your mind, my man? How you doing?
I'm doing well. Kyle, I got to say, man, I was getting a little nervous last week because I thought your job may have been up for grabs, given that excellent performance by our father.
Oh, yeah, man. I was sitting there listening to the playback, and I was scared. You best believe that I was ready and preparing for the show hours in advance to try to bring home my best performance because I don't want to lose my job to him.
Yeah, you'll never hear the end of it. Just like when he got actually, Nick pointed out to me he got 3 balls over the net on you in volleyball, Kyle. And he was over this weekend, and he was bragging about it.
Oh, my God. All right, let me just say this right here because I'm a very competitive person, and I cannot let this one stand. Apparently, our father doesn't really know how to play volleyball. You see, there are rules in games, and that's what makes games interesting, right? Because someone like Brandon Browner, who AFC East people will know, he's partly responsible for the New England Patriots winning their most Super Bowl. People like to forget how good Brandon Browner was when he jammed that guy off the line of scrimmage. Brandon Browner last year was one of the most heavily penalized players in the entire league, and he was the most penalized by a wide margin. Now, he's a big physical guy that can mug you at the line of scrimmage. Now, if there were less rules in terms of how often you can impede a receiver's route, if you could bump them 5 yards past the line of scrimmage, Brandon Browner would be a much, much better player. But he's not playing within the confines of the rules, so therefore he's not as good. Rules, the reason why we institute these rules is we want to put people on a fair playing field. You got to play within the confines of the rules. Now, our father, he was carrying literally every single time the ball hit him. He doesn't know that when you hit the ball underhand, you have to have a closed fist. And we were calling every single play, Gary. We're calling, oh, that's a carry, that's a carry, that's a carry. And eventually, what did you tell me?
Well, I did tell you, hey, let the game continue on. But Kyle, all right, I will say yes. I would say 92% of the time Dad was carrying it. But there was one time he definitely had one on you. Come on. You got to give him at least one, right?
I'll give him the one. But if he's going to go out there and he's going to brag and run his mouth, I'm not having it because the guy doesn't even know what a carry is. And
all right.
You could say that because he carried so much, like someone like Mom, she might move out of the way. And because she moves out of the way, she'll let someone else hit it. But if he's going to go and carry, well, then he's directly taking away points from his teammates. So you could argue that maybe he was the least valuable player on his team. So I don't want to hear it. I hope he calls in so I can give him a piece of my mind. And I guarantee you he's not going to even address it when I say it.
All right. Anyway. Well, I hope that till the next volleyball game, Kyle.
Till the next one. And you know what? You have a nice home. You got some space in your backyard. You better have one.
All right. Yeah. Just for you and Dad, I will definitely accommodate both of you guys.
Okay. Let's bring on Max. Hey, Max, this is Kyle and Gary. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. How's it going, guys?
Pretty good. How you doing, my man?
Doing great. Just getting started with the week. We're recording next episode of the Deep End Miami podcast later tonight. Everything's good.
Oh, cool. I enjoyed the last episode. I don't know if you saw, I commented on the Deep End Miami's Twitter account, and I said that I enjoyed the Landry versus Carew talk.
Yeah, that's an interesting conversation when you look towards the future and really think about how far in advance the Dolphins were thinking with that pick.
There was one comment out there that I would assume most of the Dolphins fans would view it as blasphemous. One of the co-hosts, and I'm not quite familiar with their names just yet, but I will get it, said, I view Leonte Carew as being Jarvis Landry, if Jarvis Landry was actually good.
That was Chris. If something is like, Chris refers to Jarvis Landry as Devon Bess in skinny jeans. But Chris, if someone says something inflammatory and ridiculous, it's Chris. That's a usual rule of thumb.
Is Chris a.k.a. Topher?
Yes, Chris is Topher. We only call him Topher, though. See, saying that is a perfect example of when he's Topher. Usually he's Chris. But, like, tonight, with the Arian Foster talk, I have a feeling there's going to be a heavy dose of Topher.
Oh, okay. So he has an alter ego, basically.
He basically does. And if you listen, like, most of the time, he's pretty nonchalant and measured. And then some subjects just do not sit well with Topher.
I will say, I've listened to all your episodes now. In the first two, he was calm, cool, and collected. In that third episode, He just went off.
Right, he lost his mind. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see tonight. He might be a bit more, while he might focus more on the Heat, he might be a bit more passionate about the Dolphins and, has moved away from Dwayne Wade talk and into training camp talk. That might have let it out of him, but it's definitely been interesting.
All right, Max, I want to get into your article really soon, but before I do that, I want to ask, so I think you told me that you work for the NFL, but I'm not sure in what capacity that you do that, and I think that your writing for the Deep End Miami kind of led to that gig that you have. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it did. I work in content management for NFL.com, so I basically help manage their website. I'm on a team of 4 or 5 people, and my job is to check the content, see what's popular, build centerpieces, and kind of get the website ready every day. I haven't done it during the season yet. I started in February, week after the Super Bowl, but I'm excited to see what it's like during the season. But yeah, the way I talked to someone named Jason Hartelius on Twitter, and he's actually the producer for Total Access. And I messaged him and I said, do you have any internships available at NFL Network? And his response to me was, I didn't know that you were in Los Angeles, A, or B, a college student. And he sent my resume around, and I ended up interviewing with 2 departments and decided on the job with programming.
That is pretty awesome, my man. And you're a pretty young dude, right?
Yeah, I'm 20. I'm going to be a third year in college. But moral of the story, just don't say anything on Twitter that you wouldn't say sitting across from your boss.
Yeah.
Especially on sports Twitter. It's such a huge networking community, and that's how I met you guys. That's how I've met, tonight we have Brian Witherspoon on our show, who's a Super Bowl winning cornerback for the New York Giants in 2010, 2009. And it's like you make these connections and you meet these incredible people, and it really is, like, people joke about Twitter, but it's really such a huge and important part of the sports landscape right now.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely.
That's why social media is really opened up a lot of avenues for a lot of people, including us. I think, Kyle, you and I will attest to that. We wouldn't get in touch with half the people if it wasn't for Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all these other different avenues.
Yeah, and Gary, I think you were on No Fly Zone Radio recently. I don't know if they released the episode yet, but they're Jets fans over in Ireland, and they're going to probably come on our show sometime this week. So it's pretty cool stuff.
I went to like a Yankees game with a few people from Dolphins Twitter when I was up in New York, and I'm having dinner with another person. You like meet all these people, and you end up really, because I think we can all agree that the level of sports fan and sports enthusiast that we are does not really resonate with 90% of the population, because they don't, like, we just want to talk about this. Like, you know, if someone told us for the next year of your life all you could talk about at dinner is football, we would be excited about that. You know, like there's a very small sector of the population that is that engrossed in it, and I think that Twitter is a great place that all of us can meet and interact in that way.
100%. Yeah, and before you just came on, Max, I'm sure you caught the tail end of our volleyball talk.
I heard something about volleyball, and I heard some smack being thrown around.
Yeah, our father was apparently bragging that he got, like, the ball over the net twice, not to mention that he probably carried 25 other times in the game. And, you know, during that same little cookout that we had, you know, Gary and I were repeatedly talking about, you know, Sammy Watkins and Darrell Revis, and probably to the dismay of many others who just could honestly care less what we were talking about and just wanted us to shut up. Right. So,
yeah.
Anyway, Max, let's get into your article.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, so you start off by talking, by the way, this article, it can be found on the Deep End Miami. It's called Punching It In, Why the Dolphins Will Thrive in Adam Gase's Goal Line Offense. And one of the things that you started, when you started off the piece, was talking about how Adam Gase puts a lot of importance on pre-snap reads and quick decision-making. And, you know, it just, when you say that, it makes me think of Ryan Fitzpatrick, because when we had Edward on recently, one of the things that we came to find out from his highly, you know, charting, you know, Ryan Fitzpatrick plays is that Ryan Fitzpatrick is really good pre-snap. But actually during the snap, you know, going on to second and third read, he's not actually that smart within the snap.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he can oftentimes make really stupid and foolish mistakes going to his second, third read, etc. But you're saying that Adam Gase, more so than, you know, the play developing, it's really important that you make those correct reads pre-snap.
Well, it's both. It's right when the play starts. There are two critical moments: when the quarterback gets to the line and identifies the coverage, and then, you know, I'd say three quarters of a second to a second after the ball is snapped. And there's a really critical GIF in there, and if you haven't read the article, I'll describe it to you now, where Jay Cutler is dropping back, and they have what's the running back's name?
Jeremy Langford.
Jeremy Langford. Yeah, I knew it was Langford. I forgot his first name. So he's actually running out in the flat from the quarterback's right side in the shotgun. And for a split second, Jay Cutler has a look where he could get the ball to Langford, who could hit the corner. But instead of taking the open read, especially on the goal line, that's very important. This is not as applicable, you know, back from the 10 back. But when you're on the goal line, just take your first read. And if you're you know, third and goal on the 6-yard line, and you've got your running back open in the flat, and you can just give him a chance, then that's what Adam Gase wants you to do. Just make the decision quickly, whatever you do. Because that kind of developed in his system. Peyton Manning didn't take a lot of sacks in Denver because he's Peyton Manning, and their plays got the ball out quickly. You know, that's why they brought in Wes Welker, because they wanted that guy who can release off the line of scrimmage, make a move, and then be open. And they can just get the ball to for a 7-yard gain. And that's what Ryan Tannehill's good at. I mean, we've all seen it. When Ryan Tannehill's at his best, he's dinking and dunking the ball down the field on slants and screens and this and that. And with that, you're entirely right. Ryan Fitzpatrick is great before the snap. But the problem is he hesitates when the ball is in his hand. And in those moments, he just doesn't always know exactly what to do. We've seen it on deep passes, too. He'll wait just a second too long. And in the Dolphins games, there were, I think, like Brandon Marshall might have caught 4 touchdowns against the Dolphins this year, but 3 of them, if there were a corner that weren't 5'7", then maybe the corner could have made a play on the ball, because Ryan Fitzpatrick waited about 1,000,000 years to throw it. But Brent Grimes doesn't matter how long Ryan Fitzpatrick waits. Brandon Marshall's not getting stopped by Brent Grimes.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder if it's with the deal with Fitzpatrick. Is it because, maybe he questions himself for a split second because he knows he doesn't have that arm talent? But then again, we also like to think of Fitzpatrick as this gunslinger type of guy, so that maybe he just says, well, screw it, I'm going to throw it anyway. So maybe he hesitates because he knows he doesn't have the arm, but he's just such that daredevil that he'll do it anyway. I don't know.
I think if I had to look at it, and if I put myself in the mind frame of a quarterback, I always want to make sure I have my best option. And, if you have, it must just not be in Fitzpatrick's nature to look at a play and say, I'll take 7 yards right now, even if it's 1st and 10. His internal mechanism tells him, look down the field for the deep post. And that's where that hesitation comes in. And then, when he looks at the deep post, maybe he thinks, okay, you know what, just take the other play. And then by the time he comes back to it, it's too late.
Yeah, he's got an inflated understanding of what his abilities are, and that's kind of why he's still in this contract stalemate. Come on, Ryan, yeah. You're thinking more of yourself than others think. All right, now, another point that you make in your article is big-bodied receiver. And one of the things that you point out is you put another GIF image of Jay Cutler. He's tossing up a pass to Alshon Jeffrey, and it's kind of like a 50-50 fade route, and the cornerback ends up picking it off in the end zone. And you said that Adam Gase kind of doesn't like these fade routes, and I'm going to quote you from the article. You said that he prefers to use the receiver's length to help him gain body position and box out receivers, rather than simply making it a vertical battle. It becomes an effort to extend pass catchers' long arms and place the ball somewhere the defensive back can't reach it, end quote. And then you post another GIF of, in that same game against the Detroit Lions, he's throwing, I don't want to say, almost kind of like a seam route over the middle to Alshon Jeffrey.
Skinny post. Post.
And then he snags it, and he tosses it right over the linebacker. The linebacker, he's probably maybe like a yard away from tipping that pass. It's a decently well over his head. But, when I read this, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I get why Gase might like that, because sometimes when you think, it's so frustrating to me sometimes when, I watch a decent amount of Giants games because, I live in New Jersey and there's a lot of Giants fans around and they're always on. And sometimes in certain games I would see Eli Manning repeatedly go back to the fade route over and over and over again, and it just wouldn't work. And sometimes it is like a 50-50 battle. But I would say more often than not, it ends up incomplete than the defender picking it off. But I'm thinking with this type of route that he's throwing to Jeffrey where he catches the touchdown, I would say those are more likely to be intercepted than throwing up a fade route. Because anytime you throw in the intermediate over the middle, you oftentimes see passes picked off in that area of the field more so than a fade route. Your thoughts on that?
Yes. So 2 things. One, that the fade route is a 50-50 chance in the best case scenario. And that is with Dez Bryant, Calvin Johnson, A.J. Green, with those Julio Jones, with those guys on the end. That's your best case scenario is 50-50. Usually I'd say it's more, 25-75. But when you watch Adam Gase's plays that he calls, he uses body positions for the receivers. And if you think about it, he's only, as an offensive coordinator, called plays for Demaryius Thomas and Alshon Jeffrey as those big-bodied receivers, and now Devontae Parker. He has had a big-bodied receiver everywhere he has gone. And I think when you look at Adam Gase's decision to coach the Miami Dolphins, he really had to look at that receiving core and say, okay, we've got a guy who, Julius Thomas and Jordan Cameron aren't such different players. You've got Devontae Parker, who could become a Demaryius Thomas-esque receiver. I believe Devontae's a little bit faster, has more physical gifts, and not as refined of a route runner at all, though. And then you look at a guy like Jarvis Landry, who you've got someone who can play in the slot. And then in Denver, he had Emmanuel Sanders, who could stretch the field deep. He's got Kenny Stills in Miami. He's obviously a lesser receiver, but when you look at the outline, it's the same. And the route tree that he would call for that large wide receiver, really, if you picture someone, if you've got a guy running behind you, or even, to your, let's say you're on the right side of the field, and you're running that skinny post route, right side, obviously, if you're the quarterback at the line of scrimmage. You look to your right, the receiver's running the post, and the cornerback is either going to be on top of him or to his right on the sideline area. And then there's an option element to it. If the quarterback is playing inside, then the receiver is going to break out and beat him. So they just don't like to do that. But if the corner is on top of him, he can turn around and the corner can't get the ball. If he's behind him, corners can disrupt the ball better if they're running from behind and reaching around with that left hand. But the problem there is that you'll often end up with either pass interference or the receiver just has arms that are too long and they're just too big. And that's what happened with Alshon Jeffrey and what could happen with Devontae Parker. The guy behind him can't get to the ball. And then when you have the linebacker or even a safety, the problem is they have to play tentatively because of the new rules. Because of the way the NFL is now, they can't just come in and level the receiver right in the chest because then they'll be at the 1-yard line, and no one wants that. So they have to try to play the ball. And if you're playing the ball against someone, if someone's running full speed into you and you're in a standing position, the person who's running full speed is going to be able to, A, get vertical more, and B, exert more power when fighting for it. It's just an easier battle. The only danger there is that someone comes forward. But the problem is the quarterback has to put the ball either high enough or throw the receiver open early enough that isn't an option. So when you look at how that unfolds, it's not necessarily a safer proposition, but it's a higher percentage. There's less chance that the ball falls to the ground. It could be intercepted. But, if you have a guy like Jay Cutler who can just fit it into any hole you can imagine because he has such a strong arm, or Peyton Manning who just knows exactly what's going on in the defense, then you're fine. Ryan Tannehill's got in intermediate range. He can put enough zip on the ball to throw those Jay Cutler-type passes that really just in that intermediate range.
Yeah, I mean, that's one area of the field where Tannehill really excels. Going on to tight end next, you talked about how you were really confused why Jordan Cameron actually elected to take a pay cut and stay in Miami when, really he had a really down year in Miami. But then you said after looking into it a little bit more and studying Gase's offense, you kind of figured out why.
Yeah.
And you said when approaching, quote, pay dirt, it became clear why Jordan Cameron would want to stick around. And my question to you is, do you think that other than opportune goal line situations for a tight end, I mean, would there be any other reason why a tight end would want to stick around to play in Adam Gase's offense?
I mean, the goal line situation, yes, but think about what Adam Gase has been able to create. First, he created Julius Thomas. Julius Thomas was nobody until that season when he broke out with the Broncos and with Adam
And he's
Gase
been no one since.
Well, he's been injured, but yes, he has been no one since. And then you look at Zach Miller last year, not the Zach Miller who played in Seattle, another Zach Miller, who was, he might have been in his late 20s, early 30s, and all of a sudden he has this breakout year. Like, there's something going on that Adam Gase does with these tight ends, and Jordan Cameron is a very talented player. Nobody denies that. It's just a matter of him staying on the field. And last season he was dinged up, but he was on the field. He didn't miss as many games as he usually does. And that's partially because they kept him out of camp. They didn't, they weren't working him every single day of training camp. It was kind of, on 2 days off one day. And I think when you look at that situation, Jordan Cameron, I'd say, if I'm going to take a pay cut to stay somewhere, one, state income tax becomes a factor, because if he signs an equal deal anywhere else, it's still worth less than $1.5 million he's taking his pay cut in Miami, because there's no income tax. And then you also have to look at the future money that can be made. I mean, he's going into a situation where he needs to have a good year before he gets beyond 30 years old. Once he's north of 30, it's a different tier of contract than if that age starts with a 2. I think Jordan Cameron, especially in the red zone, will have a very, very, very productive year for the Dolphins, because Tannehill right now, his security blanket is Jarvis Landry. He's never had one inside, or a big-bodied security blanket like Jordan Cameron.
Yeah, and if you go and you read the article, you'll see several GIF images of the tight ends that'll stick home and they'll block for a second, and they go out and they catch a touchdown. One other point about your article is QB rollouts, and this one to me was like an instant light bulb going off in the head. I was like, oh, okay. And you said that basically Adam Gase likes to utilize QB rollouts, and this is something that was always perplexing the Dolphins fans, is why aren't we using Ryan Tannehill's athleticism more to his advantage? And he's got a tremendous ability to throw on the run, and you you put, like, I think it was 3 or 4 GIF images of him making really impressive throws on the run. And honestly, I thought you left off one really impressive one from last year, and that's the Jets game in London where he rolls to his left and then throws across his body an absolute dime down the field to the sideline, and the receiver catches it. I thought you should have thrown that one in there because
I probably should have. What I was doing on that is I have a folder with all the GIFs from the entire season. So I just search Ryan Tannehill GIF, and then I go back into my bank. After every game I pick the key plays, and after waking up at 6:30 in the morning, because you guys are on the East Coast, so you guys could wake up at 9 o'clock for that game and it was no problem. In Los Angeles, I had to be up at 6 in the morning to watch that game. So I think afterwards I probably took a nap and didn't exactly gather all the plays I should have. But I do remember that pass going back and rewatching the game, and that was a pretty throw. When Tannehill moves, he's really spectacular. He's one of the NFL's best quarterbacks throwing on the run. I mean, no one really can beat Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson. But on the run, Tannehill's one of the league's top quarterbacks. And in Denver, Peyton Manning started moving when he threw. It wasn't quite running. It was a moderate stroll with Peyton at that point. And same with Jay Cutler, because Jay Cutler's not, as I say in the article, not the most fleet of foot. But Ryan Tannehill is going to be by far the best athlete that Adam Gase has ever had at quarterback. And those rollouts are going to be really interesting plays, especially when you get bootleg with play action. Because one of the biggest complaints for Dolphins fans under Bill Lazor is that he would never go under center, even on the goal line. The Dolphins had multiple plays this season at the 1-yard line where they wouldn't go and just line it up there and hand it to Jay Ajayi and let him punch it in. I mean, it's ridiculous. But Adam Gase will come back to that. And then the level of deception you can achieve in the red zone and on the goal line will allow Ryan Tannehill to really use that ability to put zip on the ball and place it really beautifully on the run.
Yeah, and not only just throwing on the run, but also just tucking it and running every now and then, especially in those goal line situations. I mean, I think back to the 2011 season, and Mark Sanchez got a contract right after this year, and he threw 26 touchdowns that year, and he had actually 6 rushing touchdowns, and sometimes they would just bootleg him on the goal line, and he's not nearly the athlete that Ryan Tannehill is, and, it would be effective every now and then to punch it in on the goal line. If you have a quarterback that can move, let him do it. And I pulled some receiving statistics from Ryan Tannehill because he was a receiver in college for maybe some non-Dolphins fans didn't know that. 2008, 55 receptions.
If you've seen a Dolphins game, you're reminded of that fact every single quarter. If Ryan Tannehill leaves the hash mark, the announcers start losing their mind. Receiver, 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 receiver. It's absolutely mind-boggling how much they love to spew that fact.
And those statistics, 55 catches, 844 yards, 5 touchdowns in 2008. 2009, 46 receptions, 609 yards, 4 touchdowns. And I was playing a highlight clip of him catching some balls. He kind of still looks a little goofy, but he was getting the job done. You can't take that away from him.
Yeah, he looks like a quarterback. He doesn't look like a receiver. I mean, he's not exactly he isn't the most fluid athlete, but when he gets a chance to move, he can make things happen. And, I mean, we've seen it happen intermittently with Ryan Tannehill where he's had some good runs, but it wasn't a staple in Mike Sherman's 1946 offense, and it wasn't a staple in Bill Lazor's, I don't even know what offense. That offense came from an alternate universe. But it's like an alternate universe where they, destroyed their own planet by, finding a resource and deciding not to utilize it because they were scared of it. And it makes so much sense for Adam Gase to really let Ryan Tannehill unleash his abilities as a mobile quarterback.
When you say unleash, that reminds me of that clip that I played for you when you did the Hackenberg episode with me. Unleash! Skip Bayless. Talking about Tim Tebow. You got a good chuckle out of that when I played that for you. Okay, so again...
Tim Bayless gives me a good laugh usually.
Yeah, he usually does. All right, so again, the article is Punching It In, Why the Dolphins Will Thrive in Adam Gase's Goal Line Offense. You can read that on the Deep End Miami. But, Max, before we let you go, you're not getting out of here without going through the lightning round, where we're going to ask you some basically non-serious questions, and you're going to give some very quick answers to them. Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so I got to ask you. It's been brewing on my mind for a long time now. Whose fault was it, Dan Marino or Ray Finkel? Whose fault was it?
Oh, God. That's the hardest question anyone's ever asked me in my life. I'm gonna have to say Ray.
Why Ray?
I don't know. It's just I can't blame Dan.
Of course.
Dan has real love. I have real love for Dan Marino.
I know you do. Hey, Nick Baby Love, one of our good callers who lives in Miami, he says, you Miami Dolphins fans, you can't stop talking about Dan Marino. That's all you guys talk about.
If you guys ever had a quarterback as good as Dan Marino, you wouldn't stop talking about him either.
Oh, don't even tell me. We passed up on him in the draft, so I'm still sour about that.
But there's also an uncompleted history with Marino, which adds to the fixation. Like, there's a reason 49ers fans don't still talk about Joe Montana that much, but they talk about Steve Young so much. It's like there's still that uncompleted element with Steve Young. He won one, but like how many others could he have won? And then you look at Joe Montana, who they don't really talk about because he did everything he could. Same with like Tom Brady. It's like the guy who's done everything he could. Dan Marino, we're still fixated on him because of what could have been. Like, could he have done it? You know?
Maybe. All right. Now, if a current Dolphins player were to star in a feature film today, who would it be and why?
Oh, it would definitely be Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham in a buddy cop movie. For sure, Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry in a buddy cop movie.
Okay, fair enough. Now, this one's a tough one.
It sounds like he already knew the answer to that one already, Kyle.
That one I had thought about. I was like, there's going to be a movie with those at some point. But if I had to go with another, Ryan Tannehill, just like if you had to cast a quarterback in a movie, Ryan Tannehill looks like that movie quarterback. If they ever need a cameo.
Oh, but he's boring though.
He's actually not. He's actually a pretty funny guy. He's like when you really he's just boring in the media because South Florida media will take anything you say and just Omar Kelly will take anything you say and just try to extort it to the fullest extent of his ability.
Well, I must say that I don't think that I watched that season of Hard Knocks, and I don't know if you see his personal side on that. Maybe that's why you're saying he's actually a little bit more funnier than that, but I haven't seen it.
You don't see it in that. You don't see it in that. You see it in the little bits with the Dolphins. He's definitely not an exciting guy. He's not funny. He's a little like Ryan Fitzpatrick, who is a fun guy. It's just he's not a fun guy because he's yelling and screaming and hollering. He's clever. Like when Ryan Fitzpatrick brought his kid up to do that mental
math problem, man.
That was fun. That's the kind of stuff that Ryan Tannehill will do, just funny stuff.
Okay, I hear you. All right, now think about this one hard before you give an answer.
Okay.
Now let's say that Adam Gase isn't your head coach this season, right? You guys don't get the hottest head coaching candidate. It has to be someone else. But there's only two candidates, and I'm going to tell you which two candidates those are. You have to choose one of them. Who's it going to be? Would you choose Rob Ryan or Steve Belichick, Bill's son?
Ooh, yikes! That's a really good question. How old is Steve Belichick? Do you know, is he in his 30s yet?
No, he graduated the same year as my girlfriend. He's got to be 27, 26.
Well, Rob Ryan has just proven to not be a good coach. I mean, I thought he would be a good head coach. I watched what happened in New Orleans, and people say, he wasn't in the system he wanted to be in. But you got to fight at that point, especially if you're Rob Ryan. I mean, I would have to say Steve Belichick. I mean, what have I seen to give me confidence that Rob is going to be any good? But then with Steve Belichick, you haven't really seen anything bad, and you know the bloodline. I'd have to say Steve Belichick.
Wow. A guy who's, for the first time, being promoted to an actual position coach for the first time in his career. He's only been there.
I mean, at that point, I would keep Dan Campbell, but...
those are not your options. Come on, Max.
Right.
Those are not your options.
Right,
you guys and Dan Campbell, man. All right, last but not least.
He's going to be coach in the NFL one day. He's going to be a good coach. New Orleans is a great spot for him to go and learn. He's going to be a good coach one day.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to fight him, that's for sure.
Yeah, I did a whole article, an NFL head coach fist fighting bracket.
Oh, I got to check that out.
Oh, yeah, I'll send you a link to that. That was actually a really fun one to do. There's a walrus gif next to Andy Reid. I had fun with that one. But, yeah, it's I wouldn't want to fight Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell and Dominic Sue wouldn't want to fight Dan Campbell.
I don't know about that, Max. He might want to fight him.
And Dominic looks like he's always looking for a good fight.
Dominic Sue is a teddy bear. He's off the field. The dude's a teddy bear. You got to love it.
Max, I will say, though, that Rex Ryan has never lost a fist fight. He will say that. He'll take that to his grave. So. All right, now, Max.
I tell you right now, I would take Rex Ryan in a fist fight over Adam Gase any day.
Adam Gase? Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
I mean, it looks like a strong wind would take Adam Gase away. That guy's skinnier than a rail.
Yeah, he is a little skinny. He's a little skinny.
All right, Max. Last question. If you had to write a book on the 2015 Dolphins season, what would be the title and what would be the subtitle?
Oh, God. I actually think that I had done a tweet about this and entirely forget. I think it would just have to be. I think it would have to be Pissing Blood. I think I would have to go after like Pissing Blood.
Let me ask you a question. Why is that the name?
Because you guys know Ryan Tannehill by the end of the season, before the Week 17 game, reports came out that he actually he had blood in his urine because he had been hit so much, and that he was still playing in this meaningless game. And that was after the Colts game where he took some huge shots. And then it would be Pissing Blood, how a goal line stand against Indianapolis represents an entire season. Because if you watch the 4 plays, it's exactly it's poor route design. It's a misread by Ryan Tannehill. It's it's just one play where I don't even know what's happening.
Didn't they fumble? They had a bad snap at the end. And
the offensive linemen didn't move. 3 of the 5 offensive linemen didn't get out of their stand. And Ryan
I remember watching that game, and I said the entire Dolphins season in a nutshell. So I like it.
The entire Dolphins decade in a nutshell.
How about that? Hey, listen, you guys had Sperano 2008, man. I was at that Week 17 game when Chad Pennington came back and beat us. Still sour about that one. I was there.
Wow. What a game. That's history.
I think Jason Taylor picked off Brett Favre on a screen. It was terrible. Or one of those fat defensive linemen. Jason Taylor's obviously not fat.
Jason Taylor's one of the best-looking dudes on the planet. I wouldn't call that dude fat. He's
No. It wasn't him. It was some fat defensive lineman. But, yeah, you get the picture.
Yep.
All right, Max. Well, thanks a bunch for coming on. You can follow Max on Twitter at Himmelrich NFL. It's not underscore, right? It's just Himmelrich NFL, right?
Nope, just Himmelrich NFL.
And you can read his stuff over at The Deep End Miami, and they also have a podcast called The Deep End Miami. Now, you definitely want to check that out. So, Max, thanks a bunch for coming on, man.
Yeah, of course. Happy to come on anytime.
All right, take care, buddy.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
All right, so that was a fun call.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting, man. A coaching fighting bracket.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have to take a look at that article. We're going to have to blast that out on Twitter, retweet that, and give some comments on that.
Off the top of your head, who do you think would be the toughest coach?
Out of the head coaches?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there's some assistants that are former players, you know. I'm sure Ed Reed could still throw down, you know. He can't do that.
Yeah. Let's see. Out of the head coaches, I think Todd Bowles would still be a pretty good fight. I think Rex would be a tough beat too. I
have one clear-cut winner. If you're going to say King of the Hill, I'm going to say Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, he looks like a scrappy dude.
I think he'd be at the top of the heap. Mike Tomlin. And you know the Harborough boys, they're tough, man. John or Jim, they're always looking for a good scrap. So
well, Jim's not around anymore.
Well, he's not around, but still John's there. You know, I remember last year when him and Gruden almost got into it.
Yeah. Let's see. I can't even think of all the head coaches off the top of my head. I'm sure I'm missing someone out, but. If Dan Campbell did indeed get the head coaching job, which I said he almost had no shot at getting it, he would certainly be my number one. But, Gary, let's get into these safety rankings, and then we'll get to the phones. But let's breeze through this. One of the less talked about positions. At number one, we agreed on this, by the way. We agreed on all 4. We have the New England Patriots at number 1, and 2 names come to mind, Devin McCourty and Patrick Chung. Devin McCourty was a former first-round pick. He was a corner, and he was converted over to safety, and he's one of the best free safeties in the NFL. When you think of pure free safeties in the NFL, because we got a lot of hybrid schemes going on now, there's not too many names of pure good free safeties that come to mind. You think of Earl Thomas, you think of McCourty. Would you throw Weddle in there? I mean, how many guys could you really throw in there and say a good pure free safety? Not too many names comes to mind. This guy's one of them. He's one of the more rangy safeties in the league. He's a smart player. You got to be a smart player to play in that Belichick defense, especially if you want to get a $50 million contract. And he is a solid tackler, too. Patrick Chung, he's only thrived in the New England system. He left to take a free agent contract with the Philadelphia Eagles, to which he was very much a disappointment there. But he's very good in the Pat system. And the interesting thing about Chung is you could argue that who's the most valuable player? Is it Hightower? Is it Collins? Is it maybe even Butler? But you could make an argument that maybe it's Chung because Chung is so versatile. I've seen some Patriots fans out there that I respect say that because he moves around so much. And Chung actually spent 37% of his snaps as a linebacker last year, 33% in the slot, and then the rest he was playing pure free safety at that, or pure strong safety at that point. But anyway, the guy moves around a lot. And you think back to the Week 16 matchup. I went to this game, Jets versus the Patriots. Patrick Chung was one of those guys that didn't play in this game. And it makes you wonder, because the Jets had a pretty decent offensive outing that game. If Chung was there, would the Jets' life been a lot more difficult that day? And I certainly think that it would have been. Patrick Chung came up really big in that Kansas City Chiefs divisional round game where he was blowing up tight ends on screen passes, where he was tackling Kelsey in the backfield, et cetera, et cetera. So these two guys, for that reason, I'm putting them at number one. Gary, your comments?
Yeah, like you mentioned already, I think that Patrick Chung, when he was over his tenure in Philadelphia, he really was like a fish out of water, so to speak. He thrives in Bill Belichick's defense. Really looks comfortable. I mean, you go back even to his rookie year, and I believe 2009, he was tremendous for the Patriots, and you know, he looks like a rookie all over again. I mean, he really has a resurgence going back to the Patriots, and him and McCourty are definitely a nice 1-2 punch. Now, Devin McCourty, Kyle, I think he kind of regressed. I thought him and Earl Thomas, I think used to be mentioned in the same breath, but I would probably put Earl Thomas ahead of him now. But still, Devin McCourty's no slouch. He's still a top safety in the league. And, you know, you think about that incredible play that you and I always debate about. LaShawn McCoy could have reeled that in, but really Devin McCourty made an excellent play on the ball and really made it difficult for LaShawn McCoy to catch that ball. And not many safeties can make a play like that. Devin McCourty's one of them. In my opinion, he's the best safety in the AFC East. So I think that's why they get the nod as well.
Yeah, I agree there. And even their third safety is not terrible. Duron Harmon, he's got pretty good ball skills.
Absolutely.
Let's go on to our number 2, which is the Miami Dolphins. And for once, the Dolphins aren't ranking at number 4. Our good buddy Nick was saying, oh, you guys better not rank the Dolphins at number 4. Nick, props to you, man. They're not at 4. And Gary, why are they not at 4? Why did they come in at number 2?
Rashard Jones, I mean, Kyle, I think no one would dispute. I mean, he was supposed to be going to be a camp holdout because of a contract situation, and definitely someone who's deserving of a new contract. I mean, he's definitely a thumper at the same position, but he's got great range, and he's one of the cover guys. And you know, he's getting up there in age. I think he's in his late 20s. I believe he's 28, maybe 29, but still, he's been a mainstay for the Dolphins. Kyle, I think that he might be the second best safety in the AFC East. Also saying that he was probably one of the best defenders last year for the Dolphins. I mean, you could definitely say Sue, but right behind Sue, Kyle, Rashard Jones is right there. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Let me hit on a couple points that you made. The age, I don't know his age right off the top of my head.
He's 28.
But he is on his set contract, and he would. Okay, and he was holding out for a little bit, and you best believe that maybe age was playing on him a little bit because, he's locked in for the next couple of years, and he's going to be well past 30 at that point. He might be looking at this as, this is my last chance to get some type of extra pay. I mean, maybe the Dolphins will throw me a couple extra $1 million guaranteed if I hold out, and because, he's thinking about it like, I might not get another lucrative contract. So I definitely think that age has a part in that. And yes, many Dolphins fans would say that Rashad Jones was the defensive MVP because the guy brought it week in, week out. Sue, no doubt, is a better talent. Sue, no doubt, is a better player. But, there was questions as to whether or not Sue was throwing some teammates under the bus. Whether or not he said some guys, there was comments where allegedly Sue had said, actually, you know what? I think I have that audio clip. Let me play it. I'm going to go ahead and play that dang thing. Where is it?
It was a fiery address from Ndamukong Suh to his defensive teammates on Monday. He told them, I run this defense. I'm going to be here for the next 5 years. There's no guarantee any of you will be as well. Only a handful of guys are good enough to play with me right now. He also said that the schemes were not good enough, the techniques were not good enough, and everyone needed to be better. He said, follow me. Now, my understanding, the room was split. Some saw this as the kind of address a leader would give. Others saw this as just something they did.
Follow me. The schemes aren't good enough. The coaches aren't good enough. Only a handful of you guys are going to be playing with me next year, right? So, listen, whether or not this is true, and supposedly Ndamukong Suh went on Instagram afterwards and, was referencing Ian Rappaport, which some people will call him crap sheet, and was talking about how, some people are liars or whatever, and, basically Sue was insinuating that this was false information. But regardless, based on Sue's prior behavior, we have reason to believe that this might be true. But there was no questions with Rashad Jones. He brought it week in, week out. So some people would say that he was the defensive MVP last season.
Yeah. Besides Rashad Jones, Kyle, they got Michael Thomas, who's someone I really like to enjoy to watch. He was making a lot of tackles last year. I think he had about 80 or 85, something like that, or maybe even 90. I don't know. But, I mean, keep in mind, he was getting a lot of those tackles because the linebacker play was so bad for the Miami Dolphins last season. So he was the last line defense. But, he's a sure tackler. He's a good cover safety, too. He's got excellent range. And, he's a smart player. He's a Stanford grad. So I definitely rank their duo as being the second best, but more so because Jones is just, in my opinion, he's a Pro Bowl player, much like Devin McCourty is. I don't know if any of the other safeties in the division are in that same caliber.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And also, don't underestimate the free agent signing of Issa Abdul Quddus, the free agent signing from the Detroit Lions. And, you know, he graded out pretty good according to Pro Football Focus, and admittedly I haven't watched too much of the kid, so I really can't say from what my eyes tell me, but I haven't heard any bad things about the kid, so another reason to knock them up. Also,
they got good depth, Kyle. They got a kid, Walt Atkins, who's another rangy safety. The Dolphins have a good depth behind in safety,
Yeah, what about Louis Delmas? Maybe he'll contribute this year if he can come back and stay healthy.
Well, he's a free agent, Kyle, so he's not with the Dolphins.
All right, that one slipped me by, but anyway.
Sorry.
No. Appreciate that, man. At third, we had the New York Jets. Calvin Pryor, Marcus Gilchrist, Rontez Miles. I mean, I look at Calvin Pryor and Gilchrist as two kind of maybe slightly above average guys at their respective positions. I don't look at them as being elite. Certainly don't look at them as being Pro Bowl type talent. I know that many Jets fans view Calvin Pryor as that because he's a fiery guy. He says and speaks what's on his mind. He is a fan favorite. He interacts with the fans, signs autographs, signs T-shirts, goes on podcasts. He'll lay the lumber every now and then. I get that. He'll deflect a pass from J.J. Watt. Fans love this guy. But he's not as good as most Jets fans think that he is. He's a nice player. Don't get me wrong. Don't misquote me. He's not that good. And Marcus Gilchrist, nice player. Played 99.5% of the snaps last year. Versatile. You can throw him in and he can play some slot corner. every now and then, but he's not a Pro Bowl elite-type talent like a Rashad Jones or a Devin McCourty.
Yeah, and back to Calvin Pryor, someone I completely can't stand, Kyle. I mean, I make no bones about it. I think he's one of those typical players where his bark is worse than is louder than his bite. He talks bigger than what he really could play. And, if Calvin Pryor can talk half as good as he could play, then he'd be a Pro Bowl player, but he's simply not the case. They're middle-of-the-road guys, both these guys. And Gilchrist, Kyle, really was terrible with the Chargers. He really had a resurgence with the Jets. But I tell you what, man, I listen to some of these fellow podcasts, and you would have thought that they're talking about Michael Thomas or Earl Thomas, or someone like, or Eric Weddle, the way they're talking about Gilchrist. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a good player, but he's middle-of-the-road guy. Both those guys right now are middle-of-the-road players, and, the Jets, Rontez Miles, Kyle, not sold on that kid. He's a thumper. I don't know what he offers you in the coverage game, but he's definitely a hitter.
Hey, he could pick off Eli Manning on the goal line.
Yes, that was a beautiful play by number 45. But I don't know what their depth looks like besides Rontez. To me, I'd be pretty nervous if he had to take one of the spots of those two guys.
Yeah, I would be as well. And last but not least, we have the Buffalo Bills at number 4. Not to say that they have a horrible safety group. They don't. But, just that we think that the other 3 teams are above them. Aaron Williams, certainly a nice player. He was a second-round pick. He's on his second contract with the Buffalo Bills. One of the reasons that we're going to knock them down a little bit is because we don't know what Aaron Williams is going to come back. He had a severe injury last year.
Yeah.
Corey Graham, he is a transition player, was playing corner. He was moved to safety last year. And I think for his first year playing safety as being an older NFL player, did an okay job for the first year. And also Robert Blanton. And then you guys also have Val Venus himself, Mr. Duke Williams.
That was an awesome analogy. I'll never look at Duke Williams to say, but yes, we have Duke Williams on the team. Kyle, though, I don't think Duke Williams will make the final cut on this team. And the reason I say that is because Duke Williams, the player that you're really missing, Kyle, is a guy by the name of Colt Anderson, who's an excellent special teams player. And he also offers something in the passing game. He was rated by Pro Football Focus as a positive in the passing grade as far as pass coverage goes. So, we know how bad Duke Williams struggled in pass coverage last year. It seems like when he filled in for Aaron Williams, quarterbacks would target him often and seeing where he was lined up. I remember the New England Patriots game. I mean, Tom Brady was picking on him left and right. So I don't think Duke Williams will make the team. I think that you look at a player like Colt Anderson or Jonathan Meeks, who are both better special teams players than Duke Williams. But, yeah, the Bills group, Kyle, keep in mind, like I said, Aaron Williams, this is his 3rd year playing safety. He was a converted corner. And Corey Graham is his 2nd year playing safety. So, they're pretty green when it comes to the safety spot. I do like the addition of Robert Blayton, though. So this group, I expect this group to make an improvement. And, Kyle, let's not sugarcoat. Corey Graham was atrocious last year. Really looked out of place. But I'm giving him a pass only because, like I said, it's his 1st year playing safety. He loses Aaron Williams week 2 in that New England game. He kind of looked like a fish out of water when he was relied to do all the communication himself. It was bad for Aaron Williams. And especially, Corey Graham, especially when Duke Williams was beside him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when you're saying that you're not convinced that Duke Williams will make the final roster, I would say that I would probably agree with you because, one thing about Rex Ryan is he's stubborn and he's very loyal to his players. If he feels that a guy is a smart, heady player and that will play within his scheme, Rex Ryan will keep him around, even if physically he can't do the job that's required on field. But Duke Williams is not one of those smart, heady players, so he doesn't fit that type of narrative that Rex would be loyal to him. So I'm with you, and I think that he's got a very likely chance to be cut. Let's go to the phones.
real quick, Kyle, before we go to the phones, on Duke Williams, I must note, because you mentioned Rex Ryan, he did point out that he was very impressed by Duke the last quarter of the season, which Duke did improve in his game. He wasn't atrocious those last couple games, but still, I think that this is his last year on his contract. He was drafted in 2013. They're going to look to keep someone else to fill that roster spot.
Fair enough. So let's go to the phones, and let's go to 706. Let's see. Sometimes when we get people calling, 706.
Yeah,
you're on the line.
All right, man. Hey, this is Nick again, the Dolphins fan, calling back for the second time in a row, baby.
Hey, Nick, how's it going?
Excellent, man. I've gotten to hear
and
most
finally
of the
getting some Fins fans.
Yeah, that's right. We had to come represent a little bit, man. I had to play a little catch up with you guys here, I guess.
Well, we appreciate the call, man. And listen, as we said, and I think you actually had dropped the line for a little bit and then came back. Your Dolphins, man, they're not at number 4. They're at number 2. Now, maybe you were hoping for number 1, but we couldn't quite put them that high. Because we still have the question marks about Issa. We don't know too much about Issa. By the way, I have a question for you. Do you know what Issa means?
I don't.
Let me tell you. So Issa actually means, or this is how an Arab would pronounce the name Jesus. And I say that because I see that you're a pastor, right?
That's right. Yep.
How about that? So yeah. So his name is Jesus. But yeah. So I think that based on what I've seen from Issa, I think that he's a decent player, a pretty good player from what I've seen, but I haven't seen all that much. But we really like Rashad Jones, and we think that he's at least significantly better than any of the Jets safeties or any of the Bills safeties. So that, in our mind, was enough to easily bump the Dolphins up to number 2. But I don't think that he's quite at the level of McCourty, and I think Chung is, kind of right there with Rashad Jones, to be honest. Maybe not as quite as good. He's definitely not as athletic, but, he does a lot of things for that Patriots defense. But anyway, what else is on your mind? Me and you were going back and forth with this whole Jay Ajayi, Arian Foster stuff. Why don't you tell me a little bit why you think Jay Ajayi is still the number 1 guy?
Yeah, I think, I certainly understand where you're coming from on that, and I think you make a good argument. I think we both know that could go either way, and we probably don't have enough information yet to make a real determination. But I kind of get there through what we've seen through the off season, and admittedly, your logic of hey, they tried to get CJ, and that fell through, and then they've been kind of flirting with Foster this whole off season. I really still think that's about bringing in a veteran presence and a guy they can count on for pass blocking, because right now, the best pass-blocking running back on the team is Damian Williams. And now he might be lucky to make the team. So, when you've got Ajayi and Drake, who are both not good pass blockers, at least yet, I think having a guy like that you can count on to protect Ryan, which, in my opinion, is going to be extremely high on Gase's list this year. Not only do we see that, through the personnel department with the people that they brought in on the offensive line, I believe they're going to make it a priority from the running backs as well to protect him, get rid of the ball quickly, which he's been doing for a while. But coming back to Ajayi, I think they're going to give him a shot to be the first and second down guy. I did read something today, though, that kind of pushed me a little more in your direction about how generally Gase has been a workhorse running back kind of guy, and that it may be more of a, changed by the series than it would be the third down. In other words, a guy would play a whole series, and then the other guy might play the whole other series. So I don't know. Like I said, we don't have enough information, in my opinion, yet, but that's kind of how I got there initially, with thinking Ajayi would still get the shot on first and second.
Yeah, I keep hearing a lot of the same stuff about how Gase keeps guys in for entire series, and maybe he just wants to keep the flow of the offense going and not really disrupt it. But I guess my thing is, all right, you definitely want a guy who's going to be an assured pass blocker I mean, I think we oftentimes underestimate the importance of that. And another one of the reasons why I like Bilal Powell, the Jets running back, is because he's a very solid pass protector. So you want that in a running back. But the thing is, when you look at the contract that the Dolphins had offered to C.J. Anderson, I mean, we're talking about $18 million over 4 years. That's more than $4 million a season, $10 million of which was guaranteed. That's more than half the contract. In my eyes, you don't bring in a guy and pay him that much money to be the second string guy to a fifth-round draft pick who didn't play too much in his rookie year. Especially, it's not like the coaching staff just fell in love with this guy, that first season, because they didn't even have him. So, I still see Foster as being the number one guy, but, hey, listen, as I told you on Twitter, if Ajayi outperforms him, which he certainly can do, I mean, Foster was only averaging like 2.6 yards per carry last year. He was pretty good in the receiving game, and he was scoring touchdowns when he was healthy. But in terms of rushing, he wasn't all that effective. So if Ajayi outplays him, no doubt I think that Gase will ride with the hot hand more often than not. But I still think that early on he's going to kind of lean more in Foster's direction. Gary, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Ajayi is going to get Kyle the crack. He'll be the first guy in the depth chart come opening in camp. He's been there. He's went to the mini camps. He knows the playbook a little bit better than Foster does. But let me tell you something. If the coaching staff has any glimpse of Ajayi slipping, or they don't feel his game is complete, or he's not making improvements, Foster will be in there week one. There's no doubt about it. And, Kyle, I know you're very high on Foster. I remember, Kyle, when he had all those great years with the Houston Texans, you said, I love his running style. He looks so smooth when he runs. He looks like he just glides. He really is a smooth back. And, he doesn't have breakaway speed, but when he hits a hole, man, he's going through that hole 100 miles an hour. He's got good vision. Interesting stat, there is no other running back, Kyle, since 2010, and Nick, since 2010, that's had more 100-yard games than Arian Foster has.
I saw that. That's crazy. More than Peterson, which was what was really
more than Peterson. Peterson 28 and LaShawn McCoy 26. Those are
keep in mind that Peterson was suspended pretty much for an entire year, though.
Well, Kyle,
how many running backs?
How many games did Foster miss due to injury?
I hear you. He's a good running back, but that's kind of to a certain extent Foster's fault.
And that's another point I think, Nick, you got to account into. You have Ajayi, who's got the chronic knee issues. They're only saying that he's going to have a short career, which most running backs do statistically. And you got Foster, who's been a back, especially in the latter part of his career, even though he's only 29 years old, who's been banged up as of recently. So I don't know if the Dolphins maybe they're hoping to have Ajayi open the season up and then maybe bring Foster in if they could get a late season push. I don't know what their train of thought is, but it seems like to me that they have these two backs that are kind of damaged goods. I really don't know what the Dolphins' plans are, so I'm hoping you maybe could give me some clarity what you think.
I just keep coming back to two things. One thing is that can any of us think of another running back who has come back from an Achilles and been very successful? I can't. Maybe that person's there. And the other piece of answering your question, in my mind, would be I think they're hedging their bets. I think they're saying Ajayi has got a big question mark in the knee. Foster's got a big question mark in the Achilles. Drake's got a big question mark because he's green. And so the three-headed monster, we're going to be okay. We're going to get enough out of these three guys in some combination, and who knows where Damian Williams will fall and all that. But we're going to get enough out of these guys in combination that our running back position is going to be fine. If Foster, when Foster inevitably gets hurt this season, Ajayi's ready to go. Or if Ajayi gets banged up, as he broke a rib in the preseason last year and missed 8 games, something like that happens, well then, hey, we've got Foster or we've got Drake. So that's my thought.
Yeah, and if all three of them are on the shelf, then you just go back to passing the ball 80% of the time a game like you were last season.
That's right, and win 4 games this year instead of 6. So yeah, I agree. We do, and I believe Gase knows that, and so protecting Ryan, not throwing the ball as much, establishing the run, which every team wants to do that, I suppose, but except maybe the Patriots. But we want to establish a run to not have to throw it 80 times and control the clock a little bit more anyway.
Well, real quick, I saw you guys going back and forth on Twitter, which I thought was great because we want that type of interaction. So I got 2 questions, one for Nick and one for you, Kyle. So, Nick, now that you signed Foster, do you believe that he was the best candidate out there, given his extensive injury history, given the miles on the tires? I mean, let's face it, any other running back in free agency right now who's sitting home on the couch, Foster has the most miles on his legs. And also, like Kyle mentioned, he averaged before he got signed, his last year with the Texans, he was doing 2.2 yards a carry. So do you believe that was the best fit, or maybe someone like a Joyke Bell, Reggie Bush, who's being tossed around now, or dare I say, and you're probably going to disagree with this wholeheartedly, Nick, Ray Rice is still out there.
Yeah, you're right about that. I don't know. I'm definitely not a Joyke Bell fan. Bush has had his time in Miami. I would just come back and answer your question by looking at Foster. And to me, yes is the short answer. The longer answer is, you guys talked earlier about what he did in the passing game last year. He's a special back out of the backfield. I mean, he is a special pass-catching back. So that's a huge thing. The other piece is, and you mentioned this earlier, I think, when you started the open about him, he's never been necessarily, a huge burner, being that Foster. So it's not as if his entire game has always been built around, hey, he's got 4.3 speed. I mean, the guy ran like a 4.67 or something at the combine. So, but I mean, he's fast. I mean, we've all seen him break away, of course. But so much of that is what you guys mentioned earlier. It's quickness, it's vision, and he may be the running back that kind of breaks the mold of coming back from something like an Achilles, because so much of a big piece of his success has been built around his vision and his, periphery skills that don't necessarily involve speed. So I do think he's the best guy on the market from a guy I would want to at least have on the team and see what he does, especially with the comfort level that I have with the other guys that are on. To me, it's just cake. And it's no money. I mean, it's no money against the cap. I know the thing could theoretically be $5 million, but he's probably got to hit every escalator under the sun to get it from the base of like whatever $1 or $2 million to 5. So I'm not worried about the money in that end either.
And you're happy if he hits those escalators. I mean, the signing was a success if that happens.
Yeah, please do. Right.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Nick? The reason why I'm asking that question is because, we recently heard about the news about our backup running back Carlos Williams getting suspended for 4 games in the substance abuse program. And I posed the question on a forum on Facebook to Bills fans, hey, if I were the Bills GM, I'd be making a phone call to Arian Foster. This was earlier on the week before he got signed, before the Dolphins had him in the building. And the backlash I got from other Bills fans was overwhelming, Kyle. They did not want anything to do with Foster. They mentioned Bush, Bell, and even Ray Rice over these guys. And it seems like their biggest thing was, why would we get another injury-prone running back? Why would we, so many miles on the tires? So that's why I said to my fellow Bills fans, hey, I'd be on the phone with Foster. That was my first name. The backlash they gave me, though, was, Kyle, you wouldn't believe it.
I mean, this is life of the Bills fans right here. I mean, one thing that we've said for years about the Bills is so many injuries Injuries. Now, is it the medical staff up in Buffalo? Certainly, that probably has something to do with it. But the Bills, years in, year out, they're plagued by injuries. So, a Bills fan's looking at it like the last thing I want is an injury-plagued player. So, Gary, I think you said you had one question for me.
Yeah, and Kyle, you're a huge Foster fan, Kyle. Huge Foster fan. And I know probably the answer. I know already this, but if you had your choice to take Foster or Forte to start up a team right now, who would it be? And I'm being serious with the question. Because go ahead. Forte is 2 years older than Foster, I believe, and he's never really had the productivity that Foster's had.
Yeah, I mean, Foster's had multiple 1,600-yard seasons, I believe, and not to mention lots of touchdowns on top of that, 16 rushing touchdowns in a season on top of receiving touchdowns as well. So Forte definitely has not had that production, but the simple fact of the matter is Arian Foster's coming off an Achilles tear, and the guy hasn't been healthy in ages. So I'll take Forte. Yeah.
I agree with that, too, as well. I just wanted to hear it because I know, Kyle, especially when we were living under one roof, Foster was your favorite player probably outside of the Jets organization.
Yeah, I was trying to, for my late buddy, Russell Pornovitz, I was trying to swing trades left and right to get Arian Foster from him, and I just could never seem to do it. Yeah. Anyway, Nick. Gary, go ahead. I was about to say our farewells to Nick.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Nick, always a pleasure. I want you to come on more often, man. We always need a Dolphins fan. You might be the voice for the Dolphins for us.
Glad to do it, guys. Like I said, big fan, and appreciate the work you guys are doing. Keep it up, man. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks. We're trying, man. Appreciate the call, Nick.
All right, y'all. Take care.
Thank you.
Nice guy. All right, let's go to our one other guy on the line, Mr. Ben Blessington. Which you guys had a very civil conversation last week. I was thoroughly impressed.
You know what, Kyle? Yesterday I worked out, and the whole time I was working out, I was listening to the Jet Take. And I got to tell you, man, I got such a kick out of him and Kyle, how they go back and forth. It's really, it's radio gold.
Yeah. Oh, how's it going, guys?
Hey, look, you hear how clear Ben sounds with that Blue Yeti microphone that he has? It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm calling through my computer, and the other thing I can see on the computer is the list of callers. And Kyle, I saw how you passed me up. It's okay.
Ben, in my defense, Nick actually called at the beginning of the show, so I wasn't sure if he got disconnected or anything, but he was there right at the beginning. So
Ben's fired up already, Kyle. You don't skip over Ben Blessington, all right?
Yeah, well, I must say though that one time I called into Ben's show and I was on hold for a long time, which I get it. He's big Hollywood superstar. We all know that. He's hanging around with Ndamukong Suh and stuff. But then I called in towards the end of the show, and the show was locked. They're done taking calls for the night. So it's like, what the heck?
We're a pretty popular show, Kyle. We got to keep it contained, and the part of the thing about our show is we give each of our callers a lot of time, so we lock it pretty early so everybody gets their time. And you mentioned Arian Foster and Ndamukong Suh. It's so weird. I think I've seen more Dolphins players in real life than I have Jets players, because I saw Arian Foster at the Portland airport like a year ago, and then Ndamukong Suh was at my school for some reason. So I've talked to both of them. They're both pretty nice guys.
Yeah, you can't have any peasants like me calling really late in the show.
No, Kyle. Just shoot me a text. I'll unlock it for you next time.
Oh,
I did shoot you a text.
Ben, before we get into any football talk, I really got to ask you, because I was listening to your show yesterday when I was working out. Did Kyle Fahey's mom really make a personal phone call to you that you got to give him more airtime?
No. Kyle was.
Oh, okay.
No. He was. I was making a joke because he keeps complaining about how he wants to talk more, and no. That was an inside joke. But no. His mom did not call me. I wish he did. I would have recorded it for you guys.
Oh man, that'd been fun.
Hey, With all this news going on about these national conventions and stuff, I saw a billboard the other day, Vote Fahey, and I thought to myself for a second, is he running as a third-party candidate? There's this beautiful picture that you got to see of Kyle Fahey, which is he's all in a button-up shirt and a tie, and it says hashtag Vote Fahey. You got to see it. It's pure gold.
And yeah, Kyle's into politics. He keeps trying to text me about it, and I'm just like, Kyle, if you want more beef between us, he just keeps going, you know. It's all right. No, I think I've seen that. He posts some pretty nice selfies on Instagram that I love to just roast him. So, all right, anyways, guys, I know you guys were ranking the safeties today, and I agree with your rankings. The one thing I will say, Kyle, is I didn't necessarily agree with your analysis of Calvin Pryor. I think of right now, and you were right. He is a fan favorite, and I do have my autographed Calvin Pryor shirt on right now. But
that's inflating your opinion of him.
You're right. He is a very good player right now, and I mean, obviously, this is purely up to my opinion. I believe this year he's going to take another big step. I mean, after his first year, he wasn't a fan favorite, if you recall. Many Jets fans didn't like him. He was the new Kyle Wilson. He was getting burned, and once they moved him over to strong safety, he really flourished. So I'm really happy to see what Calvin Pryor can do. He's young, but right now I think this is the correct ranking. The other thing on Marcus Gilchrist is, yeah, he did play 99.5% of the snaps. He's the quarterback of the defense, believe it or not, and I think he did a good job. So I think another year, with the tandem will do wonders. And I think the one thing you did say was right. They're two above-average safeties. They have two good safeties, which is key, because if you have one amazing guy and the other guy is just trash, it really hurts your defense. The Jets got two above-average guys, and I'm happy with that. We don't need another Eric Smith back there. So
hey, Ben, choose one, man. Is he a very good player, or is he an above-average player? Because you just said both of that in that little bit right there.
He's in that little range. Oh my God, I'm getting a call. Hold on. I gotta mute this for a second. 1 second.
All right. Well, while Ben is dealing with his Hollywood things, he's probably getting calls.
I get calls all the time, and all these distractions, Kyle. You don't know the type of distractions I have to endure.
That's all I heard over the radio was Kyle. He's got all these distractions. People are texting left and right.
Oh.
Let me ask you, Ben, you're 15 years old, 16 years old?
16.
How is your life this stressful at 16 years old? You're not even in the real world yet.
I don't know, Gary. I'm getting people, knocking on my door, trying to come in. I'm getting texts, and they keep calling, and I don't know, Gary. I'm gonna throw this one out the window pretty soon.
It only gets worse, my friend.
Yeah,
it only gets worse.
I'm not gonna pick it up. Anyways, guys, so what do you think about the safeties? I feel like it's a pretty clear cut. I think this is maybe the best division in football for safeties. I have to say. I mean, it's a very talented group. So what are your guys' thoughts?
Well, let's see.
I would say that
NFC West.
NFC West, without a doubt. I mean, Arizona and Seattle, right then and there, and also San Francisco's got some good safeties too, and so does St. Louis. They're the best safety division.
Yeah, I mean, if you think, what the heck is his name? Safety that came out of Alabama. He's kind of like a hybrid linebacker right now, but the Bucs drafted him, Mark Barron. So you could consider him a safety, and then you got Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas. Eric Reed, first-round pick. Mm-hmm. Is Tyrann Mathieu, is he a corner? Is he a safety? He's certainly versatile. I mean, they drafted him as a safety. They're listing him as a safety. If he's going to get franchised, you best believe that Arizona's going to argue that he's a safety. But that dude, I love that guy's game. He's a monster. So NFC West clearly blows the AFC East out of the water in terms of safety play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Kyle, there's a name in St. Louis that's flipping my mind. I gotta dig into their depth chart. But is
it Adam Archuleta, Gary?
Adam Archuleta, that big lucrative deal he got with Washington, man.
Ben, that's a little bit before your time, but the Rams used to have a white safety named Adam Archuleta, and our dad likes his good white players. He's like, they got a nice white safety, Archuleta.
That's gold right there. All right, and besides the safeties, Gary, I thought that was a good point comparing Forte to Foster. And I have to agree. I feel like Forte probably at his peak was better than Forte at his peak, but I feel like Forte has done it for longer, has been more consistent. I think that's the key. And I mean, he's been healthy, although last year he wasn't as healthy as he normally has been in his career. It was little tiny injuries. It wasn't a major Achilles tear. And let me tell you, I tore my Achilles a long time ago, and I couldn't. I mean, obviously I'm not an NFL athlete, but it took about a year before I could at least do stuff, like at least run around, and I still haven't fully recovered from it. So, I mean, especially the position of a running back where you have to cut constantly and you're running fast, I feel like he's over 30, he has an Achilles tear, he's been inconsistent throughout his career. Even though he was good, he has been inconsistent, and I don't think that's the recipe for success. I do like Jay Ajayi, but for as far as Foster goes, I feel like the wheels are going to fall off on him. And Forte, the other thing you have to remember is he has a great backfield around him. Between Kyrie Robinson and Bilal Powell, I think he's just going to have he won't have to carry 20-plus carries a game. You know what I'm saying? He'll probably get 10, 15, and that'll be good enough for him. He'll be explosive every game. So I think Forte is in a good role in Chan Gailey's offense.
Ben, we wish you all the best on a speedy recovery. I know you're still not 100% with your Achilles, but I must say that even though Ben tore his Achilles, he still maintains that he could beat Kyle Fahey in a race.
Oh, I could easily beat Kyle Fahey. I tore the Achilles a couple years. I can do it now. Like, it's fine. It just took a long time. Kyle would be left in the dust.
Ben, one thing I can tell you about.
Oh, Ben, you still with me?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Gary, you cut out for a little bit.
What I was saying is you love stirring controversy and you love pinning people against one another. So I could definitely see you trying to stir up a race. Kyle, the safety I'm talking
I'm not
about.
stirring up anything. This is something they've discussed on their show, right? Is it not, Ben?
Yeah, except the only problem is Kyle lives in Florida and I live in Oregon, and I don't know how we're going to race. But someday we will race.
Looking forward to it.
By then, Fahey will be the governor of Florida. And you know what? Actually, you know, he probably would be better than, you know, some of the other governors they've had, Jeb Bush, and jeez, I think I'd vote Fahey.
Yeah, maybe.
Back to the Foster Forte talk. Keep in mind, I don't even think this is a fair comparison at this point in the career, but no one's disputing. It's not even close when you look at the statistics. Foster's had the better career than Forte. And you talk about consistency. I just mentioned a stat not too long ago. Since 2010, now keep in mind, 2010 was 6 years ago, there's been no other running back that's had more 100-yard games than Arian Foster. Adrian Peterson, 28, and LaShawn McCoy, 26. Arian Foster with a whopping 30. So there's no comparison. I mean, if these two players retire tomorrow, Arian Foster has a better shot in the Pro Football Hall of Fame than Matt Forte does. So I completely disagree with that statement you made. But at this point in the career, Forte's been the healthier player, and he's probably the better player. But you can't say that Foster was the man. He was a Russian title winner. Forte never had that accolade to his name.
I agree. Well, I now that you said that, especially that 100-yard game stat, I think that is pretty convincible. But my overall opinion that Forte is better right now didn't change due to the Achilles.
I didn't. Yeah. But that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, no. I hear what you're saying. The career is better. Like I got that point. I'm saying, but right now I'll still take Forte. But you did change my mind on the career. But Gary, the one thing I want to talk to you about, because Kyle, I know how angry and upset you got a couple weeks ago when Gary kept calling the New York Jets a circus. Gary, how does it feel to have the Jets turn around, sign their franchise player to a 5-year deal, keep one of the best defensive linemen in football in the green and white? I just say, are the Jets still a circus, or have we fixed our reputation with you?
Well, no doubt, and leading up until this, and I wasn't wrong on saying point, it was a circus. There's more media coverage, national media coverage surrounding the Jets than any organization, except maybe with. Oh, it definitely does. When your players are getting asked about players that contract situation, it's a distraction. There's no doubt about that, and something that the team doesn't need to be focused on. So, yeah, it is a distraction, whether you guys want to admit it or not, but it is. As far as I feel about Muhammad Wilkerson being in the Jets uniform, this was the right thing to do. This is something that Mike McCagnon and Woody Johnson needed to do. was signed, in my opinion, and I was very vocal. I said that Muhammad Wilkerson was the best player last year. You could probably make the argument for Rob Gronkowski, but he was the best player in the AFC East. And if you weren't to re-sign Muhammad Wilkerson, well, that pretty much says, well, all your years that you played so well for us are worth nothing because we're not going to reward you. We're just going to let someone else reap the benefits of having a premier player. And it doesn't show well for the other people in that locker room. Especially Muhammad Wilkerson's one of the most respected players in that Jets locker room. I mean, would anyone argue that? I would think not. So this is something that needed to get done. I'm glad the Jets got it done. And it really seems the big holdup was the 5-year to 6-year thing. I think that once the Jets kind of broke away from the 6-year thing and really got it to a 5-year deal, it seems like both sides really came in and agreed. Now, Kyle, and I always go back to this, Kyle brings up an excellent point because someone asked, I was watching NFL Network, or maybe I was listening to a radio show, who won in this deal, the Jets or Muhammad Wilkerson? Well, it's without a doubt Muhammad Wilkerson. The Jets could have made this deal a long time ago. Similar, I mean, when Cameron Jordan signed his deal with New Orleans, they probably could have got a similar number to that, but they didn't make him an offer at that point, and Muhammad Wilkerson kind of betted on himself. I mean, the Jets could have had Muhammad Wilkerson at a much cheaper rate a couple of years ago, but really Muhammad Wilkerson, he outplayed his contract, his rookie contract, and he deserved every penny that he got. He's a premier player, and I think he's not wrong by saying he's probably the best 3-4 defensive end behind J.J. Watt. He might not be wrong saying that.
No, yeah, I agree.
Think about it like this. Hold on, Ben. The other thing about it like this is you say that, well, Muhammad Wilkerson ended up winning because he, held firm in his stance. He's 26 now. He'll be 27 in October. If he had taken the Jets' initial deal when John Idzik was negotiating with him, which reports were that the Jets were offering him around $13 million annually, which is $4 million less annually than now. Who knows what the guaranteed figures are, but he gets that contract 2 years earlier. Let's say it's a 4 or 5 year deal, and maybe the Jets want to negotiate to get into another long-term deal a year before his deal is even up. He might make that negotiation when he's 28, 29 years old versus 31 years old. So he might get a third big lucrative contract. So just because Muhammad Wilkerson waited out doesn't necessarily mean that he won. I mean, he was playing for $7 million last year. The year before that, he was only playing for a couple million. So there's multiple ways to look at it. Now, my understanding is that Wilkerson's camp wanted a 6th year, and the Jets wanted only 5 years from the outset. But I will say this, is all the guaranteed money is in the first 2 years of the deal. So that, if the Jets want to basically cut Wilkerson after 2 years, which almost seems laughable, they could do that. But because this deal now coincides with when Sheldon Richardson is a free agent, and my understanding is the Jets wanted to have his deal coincide with the ending of Sheldon Richardson's contract because maybe at that point they want to choose between the two of them. All right, has Sheldon cleaned up his off-the-field act? Is he a better player on the field than Mo? Because you best believe that drafting Leonard Williams 6th overall, and that's Mike McCagnon's guy, he didn't draft Sheldon nor Mo, that he's definitely in their long-term future plans, and it's probably unrealistic to have all three of these guys on, $17, $18, $19 million a year deals. So those are some interesting footnotes on that. But, so some other details of the contract is $15 million signing bonus, $36.75 fully guaranteed at signing, and if he's on the roster on the 3rd day of the league year, his 3rd year salary becomes fully guaranteed.
Yeah, well, on the Muhammad Wilkerson topic, and specifically Sheldon Richardson, is one of the things I mentioned. It's a bummer. We recorded our show Thursday, and then the Muhammad Wilkerson signing comes out on Friday, so then our episode, half of it is kind of pointless. But on the Sheldon Richardson thing, one of the points I brought up is if the Jets do indeed sign Muhammad Wilkerson, that's basically it for Sheldon Richardson, as you said. So if Sheldon Richardson comes out and has an amazing year, I mean, that's all good for the Jets because they'll probably have him for at least, he's under contract for at least 2 more years. You could give him the franchise tag. You could also trade him after next year, so maybe it's not all lost. But the Jets are choosing Muhammad Wilkerson. I don't see a scenario where Sheldon Richardson is a Jet in 4 years, let's say. I think he'll probably be with us this coming year. We're either going to trade him next offseason or have him around for another year. But the thing I am excited for is that the Jets got the 2 best guys. I love Sheldon Richardson. I know he has a lot of potential, and I know he hasn't had an off-field issue in over a year, but it's still like to be driving 140 miles per hour with weed in the car and guns and kids. Like there has to be something fundamentally wrong to lead Mike McCagnon to think he could do something like that again in the future. So for me, I know Sheldon Richardson's a talented player, and I'll look forward to having him. I'll look forward to seeing him in defensive tackle. If the Jets go a 3-4 front on nickel downs, it could go Leonard Williams at right end, Sheldon at DT, and Wilkerson at left end. That's amazing, especially for nickel situations. But after this, the Jets could get some good trade compensation. But overall, the Jets did win this deal. Gary, I know you're bringing up the point that the Jets could have gotten him for cheaper a long time ago, and I've been echoing the same statement that the Jets should have gotten this deal done in 2014 with John Idzik. However, Muhammad Wilkerson did. I'm trying to remember what was his guaranteed money that he got. I know it was like an $80-something million.
Oh, what was 5 years, $85 million, and it's like
54 guaranteed.
Yeah, 54. So he got. Yeah,
but that puts him ahead of J.J. Watt, and that's the thing, and that's only common. If players every year they get better deals than the players before. It doesn't mean that they're a better player, but to think about that, Muhammad Wilkerson, don't get me wrong, Muhammad Wilkerson is an elite player, but is he a J.J. Watt? Absolutely not. I don't think anyone is a J.J. Watt. Really, I think that guy is out of this world. But Muhammad Wilkerson's a pretty good player, but he said, he was quite candid about this, I wanted to get paid more than J.J. Watt. And he did. So are the Jets getting J.J. Watt? No, but that's where my lie is. Anyway, the bottom line is the Jets, the players, the team very rarely wins on contract disputes, especially with elite players. Elite players get well overpaid. The only time you can look at it as a win situation if you compare elite players from the NFL to elite players to the NBA or MLB, then you can say the NFL is winning, but very rarely do the teams win in these negotiations with elite players. But I thought the Jets need to do this, and I'm glad they got him. I'm not glad for the Bills' sake, but I'm glad that they got him because it sets a precedent for the organization that we're going to take care of you, and it also shows the locker room saying, hey, we brought our leader here. We wanted to make good, and here it is. So I think that the Jets and Jets fans should be really happy. I like Mo Wilkerson. I think he plays his butt off. You don't hear a bad peep about that guy in the media, unlike Sheldon Richardson. And Ben, you brought up an interesting point on your show that I want to talk about real quick, is that possibly with Mike McCagnon, his first year being the GM, Sheldon Richardson was in the news quite often last season. Yeah. And that might still be in McCagnon's back mind that, hey, listen, I like his play. Even though he cleans it up, I still don't trust him. So maybe in a couple years from now when his deal's about to go up, maybe Sheldon Richardson might be that bargaining chip for the Jets to trade.
For sure.
Now that they got Muhammad Wilkerson locked up.
For sure, and I'm more comfortable trading Sheldon Richardson, and it'd be interesting to see what the Jets could get from him if Sheldon comes out and has a good year this year. Because keep in mind, he's only missing 1 game as opposed to 4 games that he missed last year, but he gets to go to all the practices, so he'll be with the team constantly, and I don't think that 1 game will affect him too much. So let's say he puts up 10 sacks or something. He puts up a good year where he's doing his job. the Jets could maybe get a first-round draft pick out of it. If they couldn't get it from Hal Wilkerson, who knows? But with Sheldon Richardson, if he puts up a great season, the Jets could trade him, and I'd be happy with that. Now, Kyle, if you have
the parallels in that deal would be interesting because remember that the Jets got Sheldon Richardson because of the first-round pick from Revis. Ben, you wanted to ask me. Can I hold you for a second, Ben? With asking me the question, I just wanted to point out that I was actually really surprised to see the details with the Muhammad Wilkerson contract because I thought there were going to be a lot more in terms of guaranteed money because you look at Fletcher Cox, who signed before Wilkerson. Now, yes, Wilkerson got more than J.J. Watt, but J.J. Watt signed his deal 2 years ago, so you expect him to get more. And no doubt that J.J. Watt is a superior player to Wilkerson, not even close, in my opinion. But Fletcher Cox, who is a player that you can argue maybe had a better year than Muhammad Wilkerson last season, even though many would say last season was Wilkerson's best. Certainly was in terms of sack production. But Fletcher Cox did not have the same consistency over his career as Muhammad Wilkerson. Muhammad Wilkerson has been the much more consistent player, has been the better player throughout the career, yet Wilkerson got $9 million less in terms of guaranteed money, and he got $11 million less in terms of a signing bonus money up front. So I just thought that was interesting to point out.
Yeah, and I thought Wilkerson was going to get more. When I saw the deal, I was like, damn, this was a good deal for the Jets. And you have to consider that they freed up $5 million in cap space in the first year to potentially sign Fitzpatrick, to sign Darren Lee, the first-round draft pick who's not signed yet, or just to have some cash that you can have in case somebody goes down in the middle of the season. The question I was going to ask, and this was mainly directed at Gary because he's a Bills fan, is, I mean, for so long the Jets have had just a bad regime who's going out and spending big money on free agents or go getting Tim Tebow or not paying like the Jericho Cotreys and the Braylon Edwards and siding with the Santonio Holmes. There's so many bad mistakes between Mike Tannenbaum and John Idzik that Mike McCagnon has really brought, and Todd Bowles to an extent, has really brought a new culture to the Jets, I believe. Sans the Ryan Fitzpatrick thing. I still don't think we're a circus. I think media attention does not equal circus. I think the 2012 Jets were a circus, but just because Ryan Fitzpatrick isn't signed doesn't make us a circus. But that's a whole other topic. I feel like Todd Bowles and Mike McCagnon have really changed the culture of the Jets. Making them a better team. Going from 4-12 to 10-6, and signing guys like Muhammad Wilkerson and being smart with their draft picks and their contracts, etc. What I was going to ask you, Gary, is would you rather have Mike McCagnon and Todd Bowles as your head coach and GM? It's just on the Bills, because for me, I got tired of Rex Ryan in 2013, late 2013, probably towards 2014 more. But in the beginning, I loved him. But as it got on, I wanted to be like a successful organization, like the Green Bay Packers or like the Patriots. I didn't want to be the circus who had the two twin brothers riding on a tandem bicycle. And Rex won with that formula and won with that bravado, but I have to say I really like the culture that Todd Bowles and Mike McCagnon have instilled in the Jets, and I was wondering, do you kind of wish that the Bills had that type of thing, or are you happy with the bravado and the brashness of the Ryan brothers?
Well, I mean, really, if you're asking me that question, I hold little weight to that your theory, because I mean, if you think about this is year 2 of Mike McCagnon, and this is year 2 of Todd Bowles. You got to remember, Todd Bowles last year's teams were very undisciplined, and they were terrible at clock management. The only difference was really probably the outspokenness of Rex Ryan and the
penalties. Whoa. We went from like first in penalties to near the bottom of the league. Todd Bowles
regardless of that, you're asking me a question. I really didn't see that Todd Bowles was this stellar coach that I could say, oh my God, he's got all of his eggs in one basket. If you're telling me if I could trade for Bill Belichick, I would, but I don't see much of a difference between Rex Ryan and Todd Bowles. If you really ask me that, they're both defensive-minded coach that rely heavily on their offensive coordinator to get them through wins. So there's not that much. As far as Mike McCagnon versus Doug Whaley, I think you got to do your research on Doug Whaley. Some of the moves he made. He's most notably known for his trade for Calvin Shepard, who you probably don't know, for Jerry Hughes. in his first year at the Buffalo Bills, being the GM. All of his drafts, I mentioned I was on the no-fly zone, and I said to the no-fly zone, I said, last year I thought Mike McCagnon had the best draft going into last season. I really did. But it turns out they only churned out a part-time player who had a lot of playing time, and that was Leonard Williams. But all of his other players didn't sniff the field much. Now, you look at
who? Lorenzo Malden was a starter for the last.
He was still a part, but he only had 19 tackles and 4 sacks. He was only a part-time player. Now, if you look at what the Bills did last year, they had no first-round pick, and they got Ronald Darby, who was mentioned in the breath of being a defensive rookie of the year. You got John Miller, who's their right guard, he was their third-round pick. He started all games at right guard. Carlos Williams, who had a tremendous amount of playing time last year for the Bills, averaged 5.6 yards a carry. So here's a team that had no first-round picks, and they might have had the best draft last year as far as players being productive on the field. So I'm not sold Mike McCagnon. I think that was a really silly question you asked me. So.
Well, you're calling it silly because that much of a difference, or because I have to say, I mean, I was more talking about the culture as far as production goes. I mean, I have to say, although you guys beat us twice, 10-6 versus 8-8, I thought the Rex Ryan Bills last year. Don't take this offensively, but I thought they were a circus last year, and I do think they'll be it again. I think the culture of the Jets has changed, and I think although I think Doug Whaley's made some great moves, and especially you mentioned the late round drafting, that's key for successful teams, and Mike McCagnon hasn't really proved his mettle on that yet. I mean, Lorenzo Malden was a great pick, Devin Smith got hurt, and the verdict's still out, and Christian Hackenberg and Bryce Petty, etc. But I have to say, I have to say the culture has changed. And Mike McCagnon
But you're saying the culture's changed.
Mike McCagnon took a 4-12 team to 10-6, and Doug Whaley took a 9-7
But why was that? But was that Rex Ryan's fault that he had no talent that year with the Jets? I mean, was that, or was that more of a John?
It wasn't all on Rex. It was a lot on John Idzik, but Rex Ryan did play a factor into that. He set up that environment.
If his scheme is so heavily relied on the play of his cornerbacks, how can one not even sign a premier cornerback for him? That's what I'm trying to get at you. It's like, to me, it was almost like he was doomed to fail over New York because of John Idzik. Whether you want to believe this or not, you want to be completely biased. I'm saying the jury's out on both McCagnon and Whaley. All I'm saying is that, to me, Whaley is drafted better than McCagnon thus far. And I've also liked a lot of the trades he's done as well. I mean, remember, the Bills' season was dead. People talk about Brandon Marshall, but the Bills' 9-7 season a year ago, we were dead in the water until Doug Whaley pulled a trade out of his butt for Kyle Orton. Other than that, we would have been stuck with E.J. Manuel, much like what the Jets are doing right now with Geno Smith. You guys, until we get Ryan Fitzpatrick back in the building, you guys are stuck with Geno Smith. So it's not. There's a lot of things.
Years ahead of E.J. Manuel. Come on.
And in your hearts of hearts, do you really believe Geno Smith is that much better than E.J. Manuel?
Yes. I don't think it's a question. I think Geno Smith definitely has his flaws. I don't think Geno Smith is perfect QB, and I think he's a huge question mark if the Jets do decide to start him.
See, though, if someone, do you think if an outsider's listening to the show right now, who do you think they're going to call? They're going to call you crazy because you're being biased. They're really think about what you just said.
You're being biased too. I mean,
how am I being biased? I never said EJ was better. I said that you really think Geno is better than EJ. You really think he's that much better?
Ben, I think Ben, I think that Gary has qualms with you saying that Geno's, quote, light years, end quote, ahead of EJ Manuel. Not to say that he's not better, but yeah, not that much better in Gary's mind, because Gary doesn't think that Geno's good. So to say that he's light years better, implies that Geno is somewhat good, which Gary doesn't think that he is. But anyway, the whole circus, change of culture, that discussion is not going to go away. And honestly, if you guys want to continue this conversation, you can continue it on the Jet Take on Thursday evening. How do you like that plug, Ben Blessington?
I loved it, Kyle. It was great.
Go ahead. Ben, all I got to say to you is, man, stop. If you're going to be a guy who's covering the team, can't be so biased. That's what I said. We just did a countdown on the safeties. Kyle said, Court Graham, he had an okay year last year. I said, no, he didn't. He played atrociously. You got to call out players. You can't always think everything is green on your team.
I don't,
okay.
And Gary,
you do, though.
Okay, come on, Gary. We're both fans. We both share the same opinion. Kyle,
hey, listen, you guys are so much more nicer to one another when I'm not around. I don't know what's up with that. Anyway,
Kyle, I told you start controversy.
I start controversy with everyone. I'm trying to make amends between you guys right now. All right, listen. You can follow Ben's Twitter account at @TheJetTake. He is Ben Blessington7 on Twitter. He doesn't really tweet from that account though.
Yeah.
And his podcast is on Thursday evenings at 8 p.m. It's The Jet Take. They're on iTunes and all that kind of good stuff. So give them a listen. They're a fun show. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Ben.
Hey, thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. Oh,
yeah, thanks for coming.
I'm Hollywood. Come on.
Yeah. See, Ben is so used to everyone else, kissing his feet and all that kind of stuff.
I know.
I'm trying to mute him and get him the heck out of here. But
you can't mute me.
Well, you can mute yourself. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll mute myself. See you guys. Thanks for having me on.
See ya. All right, now let's bring on Amit Das, our resident Eagles fan. And Amit, we got to keep this brief because we got to talk a little bit about Tom Brady and Jonathan Williams before we end this.
Was Amit just listening on that conversation about Geno Smith?
He was.
I was.
Now, Amit, you're an Eagles fan. You're not a Jets. You're not a Bills fan. Would you say that Geno Smith is light years, or are they more in the same bracket as far as him and E.J. Manuel?
You both are like strong homers, so it doesn't really matter.
I'm asking for the. That's why I'm asking for the.
You can flip a coin and pick either one of them, and they'd get you nowhere. One of those quarterbacks.
There you go, and that's what I'm trying to get at. And I'm not trying to be a homer. I'm trying to be a realist. I'm saying they're both garbage, and you're going to go nowhere with either one of those quarterbacks underneath the helm.
That's true. I mean, Rex Ryan and Todd Bowles, they are both defensive coordinators, and most defensive coordinators that are very good at their jobs, they always suffer offensively because they don't hire the right assistants. So I think you guys are going to be stuck in that syndrome again. I'm not saying offensive coaches are better because Belichick is a defensive coach actually, but it's you got to pick the right offensive guy to be your coordinator, and I don't see that right now. The Bills had a really nice season, but I don't know, the wheels kind of fell off at the end.
Let me weigh in on the E.J. Manuel Geno Smith discussion, and I will say this. I'm in agreement with both of you guys that you could start either one of those guys and you're going to go nowhere. I'm not really a firm believer in either of them. I don't think I'd maintain this position that I don't think Geno Smith is much worse than Fitzpatrick. That's because I believe that Ryan Fitzpatrick is, pretty garbage, to be honest, despite whatever he kind of somewhat did last year. But I don't think that either of them are that good. Now, maybe is Geno slightly better than EJ? Maybe. But I will say this. If you want to look at straight statistics, which they obviously don't tell the whole story, EJ Manuel does have better statistics than Geno Smith. EJ Manuel never had a season where he tossed 12 touchdowns to 21 interceptions. In fact, I think if you look at his numbers, I'm not quite sure about last year, but I believe he actually has more touchdowns than interceptions. Now, obviously, EJ has struggled with reading defenses, and, his play on the field has looked worse than what his box score, what his numbers will tell you. But the guy was benched for a reason. The coaching staff benched him early on in the season for a reason, for those struggles. So I'm with you guys in that regard. With that being said, I could really care less if the Jets sign Fitzpatrick at this point. But Amit, here's what I want to ask you. What is your thoughts about the Muhammad Wilkerson contract? He's a Temple Owl, much like yourself.
Yeah.
He got a
pay
deal
him more. They didn't pay him enough.
Somewhat similar to your boy Fletcher Cox. What are your thoughts on the deal, my man?
Well, he deserves it. He's a Temple grad, so I'm always going to pull for any former Temple alum, as I played for that program. But yeah, I'm happy he got his money. From what I'm seeing after the Von Miller deal, the $100 million guaranteed contract is coming within the next, I would say, 2 to 3 years at the most. One of these, probably Luck, or one of these younger.
Luck just got a $78 million guaranteed
deal. He did, but he's going to get another deal before his career's over.
I think Aaron Rodgers is probably the next one to get a big time deal like that.
Yeah. See, he's in his 30s though, right? So I don't know. He's going to get some decent guaranteed money. He's going to probably get 70. I would say probably closer to 60, 70 million.
Yeah, but quarterbacks are signing like 4-year contracts. You look at Eli Manning, 4-year contract. Phillip Rivers, 4-year contract. They're going to give Aaron Rodgers a 4-year contract. And listen, Eli got 63 something guaranteed, 65 million. Phillip Rivers and Eli Manning, and they're a little bit older than Aaron Rodgers. So in a year or two, when Rodgers is due for his deal, best believe that with this inflated cap, he's going to get around
at
100
his
mil.
age, it's going to be some young guy, man. It's going to be like a 24, 25-year-old guy within the next, I would say 3 years. Somebody's going to get a $100 million guaranteed contract. Could be a quarterback. It could be a defensive player. I don't know. They're paying defensive players on the same pay scale now, it seems like, as quarterbacks. So this TV money is getting really, really ridiculous. And we're consuming it, so it's our money, really. I pay a lot for Comcast every month.
Yeah, Amit, I got to ask you, man, are we hitting the era of fully guaranteed contracts? Is that going to be coming up soon for the NFL players, or what?
No, it's always going to be an exit backdoor. There's always going to be a backdoor for the NFL. The guaranteed money is always where it's going to be at. So the $70 million contract Von Miller signed, it's $70 million guaranteed through 2018, and I think after that, there is some way for them to exit if need be. But then a team like that runs into, okay, we give all this money to Von Miller, and then they can't sign certain players. For many years, Tom Brady has restructured deals, to make his contract more cap-friendly and get better players on the team. And finally, after many, many years, they won a Super Bowl again 2 years ago. So it's,
The thing about restructuring is players usually don't mind restructuring because usually that means more guaranteed money in terms of a signing bonus right up front. So usually players like that. The reason that teams are sometimes, they fare away from doing that is because you're going to give the player more of a guaranteed money now, and that's, more guaranteed money, and that might lead to, dead cap money down the road if you want to cut the player. It makes it harder to cut the player down the road. Like, there was a lot of talk in Jet circles this year, maybe we should restructure Revis and we can free up more cap, because we all know about the Jets cap situation this year. There were times where they were tinkering within like $1 million of the salary cap limit. Restructure Revis, and then you had other Jets fans saying, no, don't restructure Revis because then you might guarantee his 4th year, and, then you can't get out of the contract after 3 years. So with a player like Tom Brady, who you definitely view him in being in your short-term plans or 3 years down the road, you don't mind doing that. But so
definitely,
yeah, I think that pretty much with these NFL players, their biggest qualm is they're seeing what these NBA players are getting paid, but the NFL doesn't fail to realize that they're trying to fund a 53-man roster.
Yeah, it's logistically impossible.
Yeah, as opposed to a 12-man roster. So
look at baseball, man. Those guys are getting like $250 million contracts.
Yeah, well, baseball.
Who's the guys the Marlins signed from the Yankees? Was it the Marlins I'm thinking of, or the Mariners? No, yeah, it's the Marlins. I forget the guy that they signed from the Yankees, but baseball's had money like that for a long time. I don't know where they get it from, to be honest with you.
I really don't either. That's the beautiful. I don't.
162 games a year. That's 162 times a year people are tuning in, and that's 162 times a year that people are going to games. So, and that's 162 times, 81 times, I guess, that you got people in your stadium buying jerseys and memorabilia and all that type of stuff. So I guess it's because it's the quantity, not the quality.
Yeah, and also we failed to mention. We failed to mention with the MLB is that it's also an international sport. It's popular over in South Korea. It's popular in Venezuela, Dominican Republic, Mexico, Puerto Rico, Japan. Even China's big in baseball right now. So, and that's another thing that they draw a lot of their talent from multiple countries. So there's a lot of ways. NFL is very minute as far as the international scale is concerned.
It is growing. It is certainly growing now.
Yeah.
I will say this, in terms of, Gary, you asked an interesting question about a fully guaranteed contract. I mean, I will slightly disagree with you, and I think that we could see that within the next 5 years, and I think that if and when it does happen, it will be with a quarterback. And there was a lot of talk that Andrew Luck could be the first guy to get it. I mean, think about it. And maybe this didn't happen because he got injured this year, but he was very healthy his first couple of years. And if you think about it, how often has Tom Brady been hurt? He's never missed a single game other than that 2008 season when he was out for the entire season with the torn ACL. Guys like Peyton Manning, I mean, he was by and large healthy for his entire career. Brett Favre, same thing. Certain quarterbacks, they don't get hurt. Phillip Rivers, this guy tore his ACL. He's playing in the AFC Championship a couple weeks later. You know, so quarterbacks, if they can keep themselves healthy because of the way they play with a quick release and things like that, you know, a quarterback is so valuable that if a quarterback in his camp really want that type of contract and they're willing to give up less money in terms of total money, then they very well might get a fully guaranteed contract because the team might look at it like this. All right, listen, this guy is our franchise. We'll give him what he wants in terms of a fully guaranteed contract because, yes, while it's fully guaranteed, you know, if he goes down, that's going to suck for us. But the reality is he hasn't been down for us, and because we're giving him less total money, that's going to give us more cap space to sign other players. So I do think that it can happen.
That would be a cap hit for them, though. When they allocate that bonus money, that doesn't go as a cap hit. Like, I know Wilkerson's base salary is not going to be that exorbitant this year coming up, but the bonus money you get, like, right up front, which is more friendly for the NFL. So I don't see how that will benefit them to have that, you know, bigger cap number going into the season, giving you less weight, and years down the line, you know, because that's basically dead money once it's on that cap number, once it's fully guaranteed. So the bonus, I think, is the way it'll stay in the NFL, just because you hand them that check.
The problem with the bonus is, though, and here's the big problem with that, Amit, is that you get a player like Albert Hainsworth. You give him this huge signing bonus, or you give him a workout bonus or whatever, and it comes time to show up to camp or play on the field, and he's dogging it because he's already got all these millions in his pocket. He doesn't need to play. It gives the team no protection whether this player is already set in his ways, and even Albert Hainsworth kind of admitted that, hey, I kind of gave up after I got all that money paid to me. So,
you know, but that's an individual. That's a unique story. I mean, there's plenty of guys who look at it as a business. You know, their body is their business. They want to make money. They want to live a certain lifestyle. They don't really care for, you know, wins, playoffs, etc. They were just good at it, and they can make a lot of money doing it. And there are those guys that love football with all their heart and soul, and, you know, they'll, at the tail end of their career, they'll take a crappy deal just to keep playing. You know, look at Jerry Rice. He didn't need to play well into his late 30s and early 40s, but, you know, he stuck around. Junior Seau, those guys are football junkies.
But that, and like you said, those are the majority. But still, when a team invests, I don't know what Albert Hainsworth's deal was at the time. I remember it was the largest of any.
I think it was 7 years, $100 million, $40 million guaranteed, I believe.
Yeah, 47.
Well, there you go. Yeah. When a team writes that big of a check out to the player, they're hoping that their player gives their all. And that's simply not the case. You know, when you're talking about a player who's on the back end of his career, usually he's searching just to see if he could still play or if he could get that Super Bowl ring. But when a team invests, pretty much they're telling Albert Hainsworth, you're a game changer. We want to pay you like one. You better play like one. And here's all this money because we trust you. And he kind of poo-poos that. It kind of makes teams resent that signing bonus because of situations just like that.
Here's the thing, though. You, me, and Kyle, we're not going to stop consuming the NFL. So the TV money is going to keep going up because the cable companies and, you know, TV providers are making exorbitant amounts of dollars. They're going to pay the NFL. So, you know, these signing bonuses, the salary caps, they're going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. I don't know if it's going to hit a ceiling one day. You know, personally, me being an Eagles fan, you know, parking just went up this year, like $10 more. I think it's $40 now. Beers, drinks are like the 9th highest. The Eagles fan experience is like the 9th highest in football. I refuse to pay that, you know, because you're not winning games. You know, last year my cousin came down from Canada, and he wanted to go to an NFL game. I took him to a Dolphins-Jets game because it was less expensive. You know, the stadium was nicer. There wasn't any, I wore all my Eagles and Phillies gear. There was no drama, no people giving us crap. Everyone was nice. And this year, a couple of my friends wanted to come up from Florida to go to an Eagles game, and I said, let's go to the Giants game at the Meadowlands or at MetLife Stadium because it'll be a better experience. Like, I really refuse to go to the Eagles Stadium and pay more when, the owner's just bleeding me dry and he's not putting a good product out there. So I don't know what the fans will do one day. Will it hit that, that ceiling and it'll head back down, or from what I heard in the last 2 weeks, the Atlanta Falcons are about to drop the prices on the whole fan experience at their stadium.
Yeah, supposedly they're doing some kind of combo where you can get
Is there any truth to that?
Hot dog. No, it's definitely true. Like, you can get, it's like a family meal where you can get hot dog. You can get like fries, a drink, and it's pretty reasonable, but it seems like it's some type of bundled deal, so maybe they're anticipating that they'll get some money because people will be buying more of them, and they're buying for a family that in the long run will be better for them. But I don't know. It's all marketing and
I hope so.
Economics.
I'd like to go to more games. I'm sure we'd like to go to more games, but the TV experience, we get to see all the angles. We get to eat and drink, much more budget conscientious.
And you have a cleaner bathroom right there. Hey, Amit, we got to move on to some other topics before we close this show out. Hey, Amit, thanks a bunch for calling, all right?
Hey, Gary, I shouldn't have to reach you this way. I called you twice last week. Return my text and my phone call.
Hey, listen, we're going to be seeing each other Thursday night, all right?
All right, man. All right, Kyle. Good. I'll see you at the gym, man.
All right, take care.
Just do your job!
All right, so let's talk about Tom Brady before we end the show. Now, Tom Brady...
Kyle, this is the biggest piece of news, and we did not hit this until the end of the show. This is crazy.
Crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But we're doing it now. We'd be remiss if we didn't, and we're doing it. So the fact of the matter is that we did it. All right, now, so basically the Second Circuit Court of Appeals or whatever said that they're not going to rehear Tom Brady's case, leaving him with his only option is that he's going to have to appeal to the United States Supreme Court. And basically, Tom Brady, after assessing the situation, people were thinking for the longest of time, he is going to fight this tooth and nail. He'll fight it to the very end. To which Tom Brady said, you know what? He went out and he posted on Facebook. He's not on Twitter and all that kind of stuff. And he said that after a long, arduous process, him and the people close to him decided that he will no longer fight it. Now, some people have said that estimations out there have said that Tom Brady has already spent about $25 million in legal fees already. I don't know if money is the sole reason why Brady has decided to stop it. Maybe part of it is Brady thinking to himself, like, okay, well, is this going to hurt my image more overall if I take it to the Supreme Court? Because many people are saying, for example, our beloved Mima, Gary, our grandmother, when I was telling her about the Tom Brady situation the last time that she came over to my house, she said, oh, really? That's what he wants to do? There are more important things in this country than worrying about deflated footballs and taking that to the highest court in the United States. And there are many people that have such a feeling. Why is he going to waste his time with that? And you best believe that one of the big reasons why Tom Brady has been fighting this thing so vehemently is because he's worried about his image, his long-term image. Obviously, he loves playing. The guy still wants to play for 10-plus more years in the league. So he doesn't want to miss any time, nor does he want to miss his game checks, which, by the way, he's missing a whole lot of more money by fighting it than he is in terms of game checks. But he doesn't want to miss any time, but he's also worried about his image, and maybe if he fights to the Supreme Court, that'll hurt his image more than it will help it. I wonder if that's playing in his mind at all.
Kyle, it's funny that you and I, we were bickering a couple weeks ago about who had the biggest circus, the Jets with their various contract disputes and Sheldon Richardson and so on and so forth, and the Bills with their injuries and Rex Ryan and his antics. And, of course, we then mentioned Mike Tannenbaum and all his, bringing in controversial guys and Sue and Williams and all this. But really, Kyle, the biggest circus has to be this event with the New England Patriots. I mean, deflated footballs going to the Supreme Court. That's not just laughable. I don't know what is. I mean, this thing has been dragging on and dragging on ever since the New England Patriots beat the Indianapolis Colts. We've been talking about this. And this day finally came, and Tom Brady waved the white flag. I mean, he gave up, besides the countless dollars he spent, Kyle, the time away from, is Jimmy G going to be the starter? The preparation for the New England Patriots. This has been weighing on their minds. I think they're all relieved to see that they know who's going to be the starter for the first 4 weeks. It's finally over. I think we're all relieved on this. I mean, this thing has been weighing on our minds, and since God knows how long. I mean, we thought this was going to happen last year.
I mean, yeah, this has been going on since January. So
so you know what? We're all relieved. The New England fan base, I feel like, is relieved. Obviously, they're all upset because, people. Jimmy G is not Tom Brady. Let's just get that. Let's throw it out in the air right now. I heard someone ask you a ridiculous question the other day on Twitter, Kyle. If Jimmy G performs well in these first 4 games, can that spell the end of Brady's tenure with it, or something to that nature, or could that possibly lead to Jimmy G being the starter for the foreseeable future? And you gave him an answer, 0%. He asked you what percentage that would be, and that's just ludicrous.
I think that was actually ESPN's First Take Twitter page. And, that show's all about grabbing headlines, what's going to grab the most headlines. Right. Conventional fans pick up on this stuff because they think, they know they've seen the ESPN feature films, the Brady Six and stuff. They all know about Tom Brady's story about him being a 6th-round draft pick and replacing Bledsoe and Bill Belichick's, choosing to stick with him. So the media will pick up on these headlines, but it's totally different. Tom Brady's a totally different player than Drew Bledsoe. Drew Bledsoe was not playing good. Tom Brady was the best freaking quarterback in the league last year, so it was obviously a really stupid question. And yes, I have to believe that this is a relief to many Patriots fans because, listening to PFW in Progress, one emailer emailed into the show and he said, listen, I'm done with football. I can't take this anymore. Everywhere I go, I can't walk down the street with wearing a Patriots hat or a Patriots shirt without someone saying I'm a cheater. My kids go to school and they wear a Gronkowski jersey and they say that the other kids tease them and say that they were cheaters. I just can't take it anymore. And you know what? A lot of Patriots fans say that. So I mean, this story has dragged on for 17 months now. And Gary, just because Brady's camp is choosing not to fight it anymore, it'll die down a little bit. But my understanding is the NFLPA still might take this to the Supreme Court. So I don't know if it's going to die yet. It still has some type of legs.
Yeah, well, I hope that Tom Brady advises them not to. I mean, think about it. They represent the players. I hope the players have some pull in saying, hey, listen, you know what? We don't want this to keep grabbing headlines. And this is a distraction, Kyle. We think that certain headlines are a distraction, but when the team and personnel people are getting asked these questions about players involved with the organization, whether it's contract, whether it's injuries, whether it's deflated footballs, it is a distraction to the organization. It is a distraction to the coaching staff. It is weighing on their minds. And it is circus-like, and this is the biggest circus right now because it is just an ongoing thing. And I'll tell you this right now, Kyle. When this first came out, Kyle, I would watch NFL Network every morning. Every morning. It didn't fail. And sometimes I watch NFL Network till it repeats 3-4 times over in case I missed something. And I had to turn off NFL Network when this whole Brady thing kept going on, and every 3 hours it was all about Brady and the deflated footballs. And I am so relieved that this is finally over and on Brady's end. And I hope the NFLPA does not pursue this further. I really don't.
We'll certainly see, and, I can't give a definitive answer one way or the other as to whether or not they'll do that, but, yeah, I'm so sick of it myself, and pretty much most people are sick out of it. Certain fans that really just hate the Patriots and love seeing Patriots fans cry, I know they're not sick of it, but other than those people, I think most people could really, at this point, give two craps about it. So, Brady, by all indications, he's going to be suspended for the first 4 games of the season. Jimmy Garoppolo will be the starter, and we haven't really seen too much of Jimmy Garoppolo, other than I could say that I wasn't all too impressed by him in the preseason. You know, people think of Jimmy Garoppolo as he gained a lot of steam in the draft process a couple of years ago. You know, people always talk about his quick release. He was tearing up the Senior Bowl, the best quarterback at the Senior Bowl. But I know some people that I respect out there, football opinions, aren't too high on him. And from what I saw in the preseason, I wasn't too high on him as well. But again, it is the preseason, so it'll be interesting. You know, that first game in Arizona is going to be really tough. It's on the road. Arizona Cardinals, really good team. But then they're at home for 3 straight. But you do keep in mind the Houston Texans were a playoff team last year. And the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins are division opponents, and division games are never easy. You know, the Patriots thought that they could run the ball 60-something times on the Dolphins last year in Week 17, and that Dolphins team is just going to sit down and let them win. It didn't happen, and you best believe that some reasons why the Dolphins played as hard as they did in that game is because it was a division rival. So those first 4 games, although I like the Patriots in most of those matchups just because of who they are, they're going to be tough because of Garoppolo being the star. And I will slightly disagree with you and say that I don't think that the Patriots are the biggest circus in the AFC East just because of who they've been the last 15 years or so. It's just so hard for me to say that. Despite the fact that they've had certain controversies, you know, Spygate and all that type of stuff, they still weathered the storm, and they still managed to even go to the Super Bowl in that year, and they're still good year in, year out. And even when a player has some type of infraction or something, usually they're pretty good at keeping it under wraps. So,
well, let me be quite clear. That was the biggest circus event that we had in the division, was the deflated footballs. Either way, what I'm going to say, that these are not going to be easy wins. You mentioned the struggles that the Patriots had against the Dolphins last season, and I think this Dolphins team is much more talented than they were last year. With Jimmy G, it's going to amplify that. You mentioned the second game with the Bills was no cakewalk for the New England Patriots. They almost lost that game. LaShawn McCoy grabs that touchdown in the end zone. You know, that game on a Monday night, they lost it. You know, and that's with Tom Brady starting. And the Houston Texans, Kyle, they won the division last year. They still have a very formidable defense. This is going to be a very, very big struggle for the New England Patriots this first 4 weeks. Especially, it's not like Jimmy G he's getting comfortable as the season goes on. He's starting under fire right away. So the New England Patriots are going to have to rely heavily on their defense and a strong running attack. And I'm not quite sold that the running attack is up to par quite yet.
Yeah, I'm going to say one thing about Jimmy G, and then I'm done. And Sion Fahey, you can follow him on Twitter at, I believe it's SionAF, and he does a lot of work with quarterbacks. He wrote a book I recently just purchased and used some of that to do some research for the Hackenberg in-depth episode that I did. By the way, you can go and listen to that if you're a Jets fan or you're interested in my opinion on Christian Hackenberg. Go ahead and download that podcast episode. But one of the things that he said about Jimmy Garoppolo is he started tweeting out a whole bunch of GIF images when the Brady suspension was upheld and that the Second Circuit said that they're not going to hear his appeal. He basically said Jimmy Garoppolo, slow decision-making and, ball velocity that, it's really not all that good. Now, I will say that Jimmy G threw with 56 miles per hour velocity at the combine, which that's the same numbers as Hackenberg and Cam Newton, and that's even above Russell Wilson and Joe Flacco and those types of guys. But it is one throw on a radar gun at the combine, and they were saying that if you look at his throws in the preseason, it looks like his arm is much weaker than that, and some of the images that he was putting out there, it did look like the ball was getting there and was fluttering a little bit. So that is a little alarming. He said whenever you combine slow velocity with slow timing and slow anticipation from the quarterback, that spells disaster. And Jimmy G did have a couple of disastrous throws last year in the preseason. So just putting that out there, I am now done. Gary, your final thoughts.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. All I can say is, and these first 4 weeks, Kyle, I'm going to wrap it up with this. I think will determine the New England Patriots season, because not only is Jimmy G going to have to at least go 2-2, you have to figure that much. But Tom Brady's also having a late start, and it seems like every year he's a slow starter now. Whether and especially being at 38 years of age, Kyle, it's you got to imagine that it's going to be a little bit more difficult for Tom to come back. Now, maybe this might light a fire underneath his butt. Maybe he comes out and has his best season ever. But all I could say is that this year, New England's really going to test them more so than ever, Kyle. More so than ever, just by the circumstances alone.
Yeah, it's going to be really tough. And you bring up an excellent point with it's just going to delay Brady's start time. So not only are they going to struggle with Jimmy G there and possibly will drop an extra game or two, but Brady's going to have a 4-game, behind the 8-ball type of mentality. He's not going to have that head start. So anyway,
he's got Kyle. He's got a lot of new pieces on that offense. Nate Washington, Chris Hogan, Martellus Bennett. You got to imagine that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to get majority of the reps in training camp because of the suspension. So
there you go. Another excellent point. Yeah, I mean, the way that the Patriots played it last year was they were pretty convinced that Brady wasn't going to get suspended, so they gave Brady the vast majority of the reps. But now you're almost 100% positive that Garoppolo is going to be the guy starting the first 4 games. So if you want to win those first 4 games, you've got to give Jimmy G the majority of the reps at training camp. So Tom Brady trying to click with some of those new pieces, Martellus Bennett, Chris Hogan, amongst others. He's going to need that extra time, which he's not going to get. So anyway, we are Kyle and Gary, the AFC East Bros. You can email the show, afceastbros@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at AFC East Bros. Gary is AFC_East Bro Gary. The number to call on the show is 712-451-0011. The PIN number is 321-848. We do a live show Tuesday evenings, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We usually run for about 2 hours, and we also do some non-live shows. I did one last week, Christian Hackenberg In Depth, and we got some more on the horizon. Make sure to tune into those. Thanks for listening, and take care.